See what matzah will do to you? We're on Mishnah Torah 231. 231. Negative, you said. 230. Yes.
Correct.
230. Are you feeling okay, Heather?
All right.
Oh, good. And then in Sefer HaMizbuth,
Positive 38.
yay. Okay. And Ma'od, was there something? Oh, yeah, I gotta pull up this. Eight.
Yeah, I'm having difficulties getting the stream to connect.
Uh-oh.
Yeah. Hmm.
Um, it looks like we're live on Facebook.
We might be live on an old meeting then, because I have a new one pulled
Hmm.
up and nothing's going on. Let me look. Which we can work with that if that's what we
Yeah.
have. Okay.
And it looks like we are also live on YouTube and have been.
Okay, we will trim it later then. Okay, take it away.
You meant that literally, or?
Yes, sir. We're live on all the tubes.
All right, I'm gonna start the recording if you give me. Oh, sorry, you already gave me permission. How kind. And you, good sir, I hope you get feeling better and go get some rest.
Thank you, sir.
All right, good sir. So we're ready?
Yes, Rabbi, I think we are as ready as we will ever be.
All right, yalla bo'u nathil. Welcome to the Mishnah Walks weekly review of the 613 commandments, and this week's focus on Hebrew related to the counting of the Omer, and we'll also discuss what that refers to. Uh, we just finished a break from Passover, so if anybody missed us the last few weeks, don't worry, we're picking up where we left off. There was nothing happening in the during the time that you were away. Go ahead and share my screen. Okay. I'm going to read through the prayer that we say before we enter a place of study. I'm not going to read through the entire thing. I will just read from right to left onto the semicolon, and then I'm going to, or rather, onto the comma, and then I will invite someone to reread it. Because today's focus is Hebrew, we're going to really focus more. And if you don't usually interact with us, I really invite you, I beg you, to at least give a try at reading just one word or even one letter. Every step counts. A lot of times we hold ourselves back by fear, but there's no reason to fear. Everybody who makes any kind of progress makes progress imperfectly. There is no perfect progress. So let's begin. I will read each word, and then whoever feels comfortable, uh, feel free to speak up, and you will go ahead and then repeat what I said. Yehi, from right to left, right? Yehi, rason milfanecha. Yehi rason milfanecha. Adonai Elohai. Okay, who's the first victim?
I believe that's going to be me because
All
everybody
right.
else is not ready to yet.
Okay, no problem.
Yehi ratzon milefanecha Adonai Elohai.
Beautiful. All right, now I'm going to translate it, and then you're going to have to translate it afterwards. Yehi literally means may he be. It can also be like may it be, because there is no it in Hebrew. So every it in English would become a he or a she in Hebrew. So literally, may he be, and contextually, may it be. Okay. Or son, favorable or favor or will. And there's some kind of inference in this word. So you could translate it as may it be favorable, or more literally, may it be your will, with the your being implied. Milefanecha, from before you. The from isn't necessary to translate, but that's what this is literally. So may it be favorable, or may it be your will before you. Adonai. Of course, this isn't literally Adonai, which means my Lord or my divine Lord, but this is the four-letter most holy name of God, referring to the only absolute independent existence that depends on no other existence but itself. Right? So Adonai refers to the only true God, not merely by a title, but in reference to his existence itself. Elohai, the powerful authority over me, i.e., my God. Okay, go ahead. You don't have to translate it verbatim as I did, but in your own words, word by word. Anybody else, if you want to give it a shot, and this is a chance to translate, you don't have to read it through. Yehi. Who can tell me what Yehi means?
May it be?
There we go. And is it literally may she be or may he be?
Mm,
Right? We can know that it's a he because it starts with a yud. Right? Female verbs do not start with a yud. So if you see a yud at the beginning, it's male. Right? So may it be, literally it's a he be. Okay. Awesome.
favorable?
Yes, ma'am. It also means will. Will. So it has two major connotations. Favor, grace, favor in the sense of grace. It also means will, Will, as in the will to do something. Mille fanecha.
Uh, before you?
Beautiful. And we have a prefix mil. We don't really need to translate in English because we wouldn't normally say this in English, but in Hebrew it's here. It's not unusual in Hebrew per se. And you can't translate every little detail literally in a normal translation. It would just be too wordy and sometimes cumbersome. But literally, the meat prefix means from. So literally, it's from before you. Right? Who can tell us something about the most holy four-letter name of God? Anyone other than Heather? We read it as Adonai. Of course, we know it's not literally the letters of Adonai. Who can tell us anything about the four-letter name of God? How is it unique from all other references to the Creator? We need a sound option that I can click while we wait for people.
Some hold music.
Yes, the Mishnah walk. Da 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 da. I know some people's mics aren't working, so maybe that's the issue. Let's see. One person's working on wood, so they may not want to turn on their mic. Deb said, I didn't hear anything. Huh.
That was when you were talking about your dream.
Oh, good. All right, Heather, what can you tell us about the four-letter name of God? How
Um,
different from other references to the creator?
how it's different than other references to the creator?
Yes.
It's his actual name rather than a name that we use for him that's not, his
Rather than just being a title.
right.
So, in reference to titles, they either describe actions, the doings or the expressions of God that we perceive, such as the merciful one. That's a reference to the fact that he expresses acts of mercy. The creator refers to the fact that he creates, right? So these are all references to his deeds, or they're references to how we relate to him, such as father. Clearly, he's not our biological father, heaven forbid, but it's relational in the sense of the one who is not only the authority over us, but also cares for us like a parent, right? But again, this is relational. It's something in relation to created things. In contrast to all those titles, which do not refer to the being of God as he is himself, this name refers to the reality of God as he is, independent of the perception of him by created things. So, in contrast to all the other titles in reference to God, this is not in reference to a specific deed or in reference to how we relate to him, but rather it's in reference to the reality of the creator as he truly is, which is impossible for us to fully grasp, but it relates to the fact that he is the absolute existence, right? The immutable. Can you summarize that, or anybody summarize that in their own words? Yeah, we got a message from another member. They're listening, but they're working in the yard with family. So maybe it'll be a quiet day. Heather, you're going to get a lot of work today. You're welcome. Can you
Really?
summarize what we just said about the Tetragrammaton, about the most holy four-letter name of God?
That it's his name and not a title.
Yes, and how is it different from the titles?
Um,
So if anyone's listening in the future, in the recorded version, take a note, get a pen and paper, and write down the uniqueness, the special holiness in the four-letter name of the Almighty, Yud He Wo He, the Tetragrammaton, often rendered in English as Jehovah. The uniqueness of this name and its sanctity is not in the precise pronunciation of it, but rather in what it means. In contrast to all other titles that we call God, the Holy One, the uh, the Father, the Merciful One, the Creator, in contrast to all of those which relate to his actions or relate to how we perceive him in relation to him, i.e., the protector of ourselves, our Father, in contrast to all those which are from the perspective of a created thing and not in reference to his reality as it truly is. In contrast to all that, his holiest name, the Tetragrammaton, refers to his being as it truly is, absolute being, independent existence. Okay? So it's not in reference to God as we relate to him through certain actions, but rather it's referring to God as he is. Sometimes it's called the explicit name. And that's part of the reason why it's the reality of the creator as he truly is, and not with reference to a particular act, other than the fact that he is the true existence, independent existence. Okay, Heather, one more time. You don't have to say all of it, but just more or less, what is the difference between the Tetragrammaton and other names or titles of God?
it better and more accurately describes his existence, not from the perspective of humans, but from what he is in reality.
Exactly, exactly. And it's because of this that this name stands above all other names, all other names. All other names that we give to God, well, they're not forbidden to call God by those names or titles, such as Creator, such as Father, such as Merciful One. But all those other titles could also be truly referred to a human, to a created thing. Although the Almighty is the only true creator, yeah, for sure, but he's much more than that. And a human can also, quote unquote, create things. A human can also be a father, more literally. A human can also do acts of mercy, but no human is immutable, absolute existence. It's a name that's incomparable to any created thing. So this is the name that's above all names, in contrast to even a name like Yeshua, for example, which means deliverance. That is only in reference to the interaction between God and his creation, but not in reference to his existence as it is. And similarly, just as with the word merciful, and a human can be merciful, a human can also save someone else. Yeah, our acts of saving are not as glorious as God's acts of saving, but a human can also save someone else. Um, but a human cannot exist inherently uh, by virtue of his own existence. That is unique to the true creator. So for this reason, this most holy name of God is the only word in Hebrew that is absolute deity, that refers to absolute deity. The titles El, Mighty One, the title Elohim, Powerful Authority, all these other titles, King, Lord, all of those, although it's great and fitting to call the creator by those terms, but they do not compare to this because all those other terms can also apply to human beings. But this name is his alone. Baruch Hu, Baruch Shemo. Blessed be he and blessed be his name. All right, Milah Haba'ah. Heather, Tur Shalach. Tell us about this word. You
That
can say it.
means
You can say it first and then go ahead.
Elohai, the powerful authority over me.
Exactly. Exactly. It's usually rendered my God. And as opposed to Elohim, this is Elohai. The high ending makes it mine. Right? First person possessive. Let's keep going. You can go ahead and read and translate if you're able. I'll help you as you go along.
Shelo ekoshel bidvar halaha. That I may not stumble in a matter of halaha, of Jewish law.
Beautiful. Tamshichi. Continue. Tamshichi.
Shelo omar al tameh tahor wa al tahor tameh.
Right. Now, read each word and translate each word by word, but read it in Hebrew and then the English. Some people are working, they can't look at what we're seeing.
Shelo, uh, that I not.
Yes, that's right. And the I is inferred. We know it contextually from the next verb, which lets you know it's I. All right. So that not.
Omar, uh, say
Right. And it's literally I shall say. And that's how we know that the I would be in the previous.
all about regarding uh, that which is impure,
Tameh. So tameh means impure.
that it is pure.
Right? Tahor. Tahor means pure.
Wa'al, and that tahor,
And regarding wa'al and
okay,
regarding.
and regarding tahor, that which is impure or is pure.
Right. Tahor is pure. That's right. It's actually related to Sahorayim, the Hebrew word for afternoon. It's from the same root. Although one is with a sa and this is with a ta, one is with a sadi and this is with a qeth, but tet and sadi interchanged in Semitic languages. And that also tells us something about their correct historical pronunciation. that their historical pronunciation was similar enough that they would get mixed or confused in different dialects, right? And that's because pleth is not a regular T, although it's usually taught as just a regular T. It is a T, but not a normal English T. It's a slightly pharyngalized T, so you slightly tighten your tonsils and you touch the tip of your tongue a little further back than normal when you make this T, as opposed to a regular T where you don't do all that crazy stuff. So this isn't just tahor, it's tahor, tahor. And that's similar to the Saudi letter in the word sohraim, afternoon, which is also not a regular S, but rather it's a pharyngalized S where you're cupping your tongue and touching a little further back than you would with a regular S. So the contact of your tongue to the roof of your mouth for the letter Beth is the same position of contact as for the letter Saudi. That is why they interchange. They're both pharyngalized and they're both making contact a little further back than the normal counterparts of each letter. All right, so tahor means pure, and that's why we call the afternoon tahor, tahorayim, because it's like the brightness of the sun. And it's in that sense that tahor means pure, meaning a light shines through it. That's the idea. All right? Milah ba'a. Next.
Tome,
Yeah, tome.
impure.
And this may come from a Hebrew word atum, which means closed off. So it's kind of like the opposite of tahor. It's something that like allows light to shine through. And tameh, if it's derived from the Hebrew root atum, which is likely, then it's the opposite of letting light shine through. It's in some way closing or sealing off the shining of light. Right? Understand that as you may. All right, you can go ahead and read the entire line and then translate.
Here I am reading and I'm muted.
Uh-oh.
Wa'al mutar asur wa'al asur mutar.
Okay. Targimi, translate to
And
targimi.
regarding that which is permitted, that it is not permitted, and regarding that which is forbidden, that it is permitted.
All right, and you translated it perfectly, very literally. What its meaning is that in Hebrew is much more terse than English because you have to fill in you have to fill in the lines, fill in the blanks kind of between words in Hebrew often because it's usually not redundant. If it already said something, it'll often avoid saying it again if at all possible. The only exception are negatives. Hebrew is perfectly fine with double negatives, but other than double negatives, it's extremely terse and non-repetitive, much less than English. So what does it mean? And regarding what is and regarding permitted, forbidden. That's what it literally says. And regarding permitted, forbidden, and regarding forbidden, permitted, is saying that I should not say regarding what is permitted. And again, you have to fill in all of that between the lines. That I should not say regarding, and then you fill in between the words what is permitted, that it is, and you also have to provide that it is forbidden, asur. Nor should I say, and again, the nor is inferred, nor should I say regarding what is forbidden that it is permitted. Right? So this is the most challenging part of learning Hebrew. You don't just learn a list of vocabulary words, but you also have to learn how to fill in the blanks between the words because it's such a terse language. Has anyone picked up a English book that was translated from Hebrew and then picked up the Hebrew original and looked at them side by side? So I encourage you, if you ever visit Israel, go to a bookstore, preferably, well, in order to do this, you need to go to a bookstore that has both English books and Hebrew books. And you'll almost certainly find books that are available both in English and also in Hebrew. And if you do that, you will find that the Hebrew is significantly shorter than the English. Invariably, the English translation is going to be at least about half, not half. The English is going to be at least about twice as thick as the Hebrew. And the Hebrew will be about half the thickness of the English. And this is why, what we're looking at right now. Right, so you can do a lot with a little. Right, ونمشيخ, if anyone would like to volunteer, feel free to practice your reading. You don't have to read the entire phrase, even just one short little word. You can tell us the letters. That is worthwhile for your Hebrew learning. Every step contributes to the progress.
I'll try.
Oh, bechavov, go right ahead. Bechavov.
Well, Akshal,
Beautiful. Akasha.
Akshal, Bad, Badavar,
Beautiful. All right, so the dot under the bet is an E. Bidvar.
Bidvar.
Got
Okay.
it.
I forgot that.
Excellent.
Alaka,
All right.
Alaka.
Excellent. Now, when the cha has no dot, it's usually Hebrew's most beloved sound. So, so if you see the chaf, the backward C without a dot, it's a. So let's do it one more time. But if you said halakha, that's completely understandable. Like people will understand you, even a native Hebrew speaker. So although it's not how they would normally read it, it's not so off that it would not be understood. And some letters get mispronounced so badly you wouldn't be understood. This is not one of them. But let's read it one more time.
Halakha.
Excellent. Halakha. Halakha. Excellent. Excellent. Kol hakavod. And you read with pretty good speed as well. Yeah, come on. So in the future, you got to volunteer more. This is great. I mean, trust me, the more you do it, you will be shocked at how quickly you progress. We just have to, as our sages said, not be afraid to be a little bit embarrassed, um, because that's the only way to learn, really. And the more we do it, the less embarrassing it gets. We realize that everybody had to do that. Everybody has to get a little bit uncomfortable to make progress, but it is more than worth it. Right? There was a quote I shared last week. I can't remember exactly how it went. If somebody remembers, if you saw it, I think it said something like, "Oof," I can't remember. You know what? I'm gonna look for it real fast because it's worth seeing. You guys don't see my screen, right? I don't want to expose my Facebook friends.
Correct. We don't see it right now.
You better not be pulling my leg.
I'm not.
You did. I think you saw the quote last week, Heather. I'm not sure if you
I
remember it.
think I did. I don't remember what it is off the top of my head, though. I was
Okay.
just pulling it up myself. Is
It's
it in
worth.
order to do something well, you first have to do it poorly? Or is the ancient
Yes.
sages of Israel taught one who is overly shy doesn't learn?
Yes. Can you read it one more time, please?
In order to do something well, you first have to do it poorly. Or, as the ancient sages of Israel taught, one who is overly shy does not learn.
Beautiful. So in order to do something well, we have to do it poorly, right? And with time, it will be glorious. Okay. בואו נמשיך. Let's continue. How do we say let's continue?
בואו נמשיך.
מעולה. Excellent. מעולה. All right. Deb, if you'd like, you can do this one also, just to this comma from here to here. Oh, you don't have to do all that stuff.
I
Just from.
don't think we translated that last phrase.
Oh, okay. Thank you. Thank you. Go
No
ahead.
problem. And that I shall not stumble in a matter of halacha, of Jewish law.
Excellent. So again, this is the prayer that we say anytime we enter a place of study. You don't have to have it memorized. You don't have to say it verbatim. It's really just like a little starting point to get the train going. Like when a car is going kind of slow or idling, you get some people to push it from behind. So don't feel like this is the only words of prayer you can say. You can say in your own words as well. This is a good starting point and also to build our Hebrew vocabulary. All right. Mi haba batur. Who's next? Mi haba batur.
I'll try again,
B'chavod.
but
Excellent. B'chavod.
I'm very much a beginner and I don't know what a lot of these words mean yet.
You sound excellent, though. Seriously, your reading, I
Okay.
think, is a little bit more than just a simple beginner. You're probably advanced beginner or beginning intermediate, to be honest.
Okay, that is
Take your time.
ve ish
Right?
ma
When it's on the left, it's a
oh
sin. So
is
remember, when it's on the left, it's a sin. It's a sin on the left.
is ma no me tu
Right? Now
is
this looks similar to a tav,
is
but it has no foot. A tav has a little foot on the bottom left side. Here is a tav. I want to show
is
you that.
me.
Here it is. You see this right here? I'm highlighting.
Mhm,
That's a tav, and the letter we're
right.
looking at right now is this. So they do look similar, but the current letter has no foot on the bottom left. So it's a het. The English letter H actually derives from this het. Imagine it as the bottom part of the letter H in English, right? If you just take these two legs and extend them a little higher, you have the English version of this letter, which is actually derived from Paleo Hebrew as opposed to this kind of writing. Right, but it's the same letter. So وَيِسْمَحُ. وَيِسْمَحُ.
Ismehu
Excellent. Right, and
bi
that means, and may they rejoice. Yes, be in me. All right, next word.
ve ra
Good. Havera, and then we have an E sound at the end. Haverai. Haverai.
averai. Sorry, I got a
Yeah.
throat situation.
Are you all right?
Yeah, I think I'm fine.
All right. Haverai. So haver is a friend. If you add that I at the end, it makes it my plural. Haverai, my fellows, my friends. ويسمحوا بحverai. Let's read it one more time. Go ahead, Deb. بخبر.
Ve ismahu bi havarai.
Mitsuyan. Excellent. Mitsuyan. All right. And you want to give it a shot at translating? And may
And
they go ahead.
and ismahu, don't remember.
All right. So it's from the root sameach, which means joy.
Oh,
And then there's prefixes and a suffix to tell us who's doing it and when. So the root is simha or sameach. That means joy. The vav means and. The yud means he shall, but we know
rejoice.
it's a they shall because the u tells you it's plural.
Okay.
So the
They
yud at the
shall.
beginning tells you it when and who's doing it, and the u is telling you whether it's plural or singular.
Thank you. That helps. And they shall rejoice.
Excellent, excellent. See, and this is again another reason why Hebrew original texts are so much shorter than their translations. This is a whole sentence in English. It's
It's
a
like
whole
Hungarian.
sentence. Say what?
Just like Hungarian.
Yeah, it's crazy, right?
Yeah.
And they shall rejoice. All of that, how many letters is that in English? I don't even know. But in Hebrew, this is 2, 4, 6 letters. Because normally we don't even write the vowel points. We just write the consonants and we know what it says. All right. B, maze B. What is B?
I
All right. So the E sound does refer to oneself. So the B prefix means in or with or by. I would just translate this as in me.
in me.
Or you could say with me. It should
With
rejoice
me.
with me. Yeah.
And they shall
And then
rejoice with me. Haberai.
Rai.
Rai.
That's
Don't know
right.
that one.
So haver is a fellow or a friend, and the I is a suffix that makes something mine, possessive, like my, and it's plural, right? So if yad means hand, then yadai means my hands. If bin means son, then benai means my sons. So haver is friend, haverai, my friends. Right? You guys make sure you have a pen and paper and take notes because I don't analyze, I try to avoid analyzing words that are not so common. But these are pretty common ideas, concepts in Hebrew grammar. You should encounter them often if you're trying to learn Hebrew. All right. Phrase haba. Next phrase. Amira haba.
You want me to continue?
Yeah, if you want to. It's excellent. Excellent.
Ve'al yik. No, is it yik?
It is
Yikash.
ikash. Yeah.
Yikashlo.
Excellent. Say it a few times.
Yikashlo. Yikashlo.
That's what you need to do even when you're practicing by yourself. If you read through a word and it didn't immediately come, okay, but you read through it accurately, don't be satisfied just with reading it accurately. That is important and that's a milestone. And that's what you did just now. You read it beautifully. But once you read a new word accurately, then you need to say it at least 3 or 4 times in a row to help strengthen your muscle memory in your mouth. There is such a thing as muscle memory. Your brain's habituating itself and memorizing a certain pattern of muscle movements so that in the future you don't have to think about it. It'll just kind of flow like water through a faucet. It's a real thing. So we read ye kashalu. Then we want to say it a few times. And again, not just in our Hebrew lessons, but anytime you're practicing alone. Yikashalu, yikashalu, yikashalu. Say it a few times.
Yikashalu.
Excellent. And also when you're practicing with us, you don't need me to ask you, just do it automatically.
Okay.
If I let you know you read it correctly, you can go ahead and just automatically say it a few times.
Yikashalu. Haberai.
Good. Say it a few times.
Haberai.
All right.
Yikashalu.
Haverai. Haverai.
Habarai.
Yeah.
Yikashalu. Habarai.
Excellent. Say haverai 3 times.
Haberai. Haberai. Haberai.
Excellent. And you remember how when you first read it, you said
Ha.
haverai, haverai.
Haberai.
But you remember how
Haberai. I did.
okay. So that it sound, you were inserting an e in it. You were not just saying rai, you were saying ra'i, ra'i. That I sound is an actual letter in Hebrew. That is the correct sound of aleph. People are often taught aleph is silent, but in classical Hebrew, biblical Hebrew, it's not silent. In modern Hebrew, it's usually, no, modern Hebrew, they often pronounce it as well. In European Hebrew and standard American Hebrew, it's often silent because we don't have a letter to symbolize that in English. But the sound is the sound of aleph. So, for example, normally they'd read this as tameh, but it should really be tamet, tamet, et. There's a et there, tamet, tamet. This is normally read asur, but it's really asur, asur, asur. Haverai. And
Haberai.
if we say haverai, it's as if we put an aleph in the middle. Haverai, haverai. That would be taking this aleph and smashing it in the middle. All right. So
That's
we
helpful.
learned, go ahead. Yeah. So we learned that the I suffix means my, many of something. And we learned that aleph actually has its own consonantal sound. Right? That's only when aleph has a vowel with it. If there's no vowel associated with it, then it is silent. It's usually just symbolic of a vowel at that time. But if there's a vowel with it, then it actually has a consonantal sound in biblical Hebrew. And let's continue.
חברי בדבר,
Okay, now the vowel here under the bet
E.
is called a hirik, so it makes an E sound.
בדבר.
Excellent. Bidvar, bidvar.
That's easy because I'm Devora.
Yes, exactly. That's right. Devora, I believe, means be, but it does sound like the word devar, which is a thing or a concept or an utterance. Maybe
I like
Devorah
that.
is, go ahead. So
I
maybe
like that connection.
Devorah is called Devorah, perhaps, and I'm just speculating. Maybe it's called Devorah because they make a lot of noise. So it's like they're chat. You know what I'm saying? They're chattering with each other. Bzz, 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 bzz.
Yeah.
It might also be because there's an Aramaic word related to traveling that also looks like Devar, and I'm not sure why that is, but a word for traveling in Aramaic also looks like Devar, so maybe because bees travel from like one flower to another, and people were noticing that. So in some ancient Semitic language, they started calling it like the little travelers, and it happens to sound like the word for Devar. And also we know it can relate to wilderness, and maybe that's the connection to traveling. Bar means the outside, and midbar with a dalet again, davar, midbar means wilderness. Let's keep going. Milah haba'a, next word. Milah is word, haba'a is next. Milah haba'a.
Halacha.
Mitsuyan, beautiful pronunciation. Maze halacha. What is halacha? Maze halacha.
Observing the commandments.
Yes, it's the way in which we do the commandments. So instead of every man for himself, the halacha is the unified manner in which we do the commandments. Okay. This is a typo right here. So the dot should be on the left side. What esmah? What esmah?
Es. Can't see that.
Yeah.
The three dots under there, not
yeah. It's usually pronounced What esmah?
What esma.
Yeah, and when you see het at the end of a word, you just want to exhale loudly. Mah, mah. Yes. What esmah?
Esma.
Right? And I shall rejoice. Just like we had over here. Yismahu, and they shall rejoice. Esmah, I shall rejoice. The aleph prefix means I shall.
Baham.
Nachon, bahem. Relax your throat when you do the hey. Just like the English letter in he helped her. Bahem. Mitsuyan, excellent. Right. Mazeb bahem. What is bahem?
I don't know.
Right. How about a b prefix? What might that be? The b here is a prefix.
In?
That's right. So, and I shall rejoice.
In.
In. And then mazehem. What is him? Mazehem.
I don't know.
It rhymes with the English equivalent. Them. Him is them.
Oh.
Right, so him is
I don't
them.
remember that. I should know that, but I don't remember that.
Go ahead and write it down. Him rhymes with them. So him is them. Bahem. So what asmah bahem mean?
Rejoicing with them.
That's right. And it's I shall rejoice. We know it's future because the I part is as a prefix. And I shall rejoice with them.
I shall rejoice with them.
All right. So we're praying to God in this prayer, or when we enter a place of study, that we acknowledge with gratitude that it will be in accordance with his will, that we will not stumble in a point of how we properly do God's commandments as a community rather than as religious vigilantes. And it's a beseeching that we not forbid what is permitted in the same way that we not permit what is forbidden. And in walking in that path, by not adding to his Torah nor taking away from it, that we, in doing so and being cautious like that, that we won't stumble in doing his commandments, and that our fellows will rejoice with us. And likewise, they won't stumble because of us, and we shall rejoice with them. When Omar and everybody said, Amen. All right, so believe it or not, this just started our lesson. That was just the beginning. Let's go on to the 613 commandments, the review of the 613 commandments. So we are picking up on a prohibitive commandment 231. Isn't that right, Heather?
Yes.
All right, a big thank you to Heather for always keeping us on track. Clearly, Joseph needs help. uh, I'm like the ADD, OCD kid just looking around in the sky. Like, what? There's a gift like that of some little boys like looking around. Every time I see that, I take it personally. Okay. Mi רוצה לקרוא. Who would like to read? Mi רוצה לקרוא. If you want to read, please say, אני רוצה לקרוא. אני רוצה לקרוא.
אני רוצה לקרוא.
Excellent. If you're female, you could say, אני רוצה לקרוא. אני רוצה לקרוא.
Not to demand the repayment of a loan after the 7th year has passed, as Deuteronomy chapter 15, verse 2 states, do not demand payment from your fellow man.
Okay, and this is not talking about the 7th year from the time that the loan was taken, but rather it's talking about the 7th year counting as a nation. So the counting of years as a nation. So it may be that somebody took a loan even just 1 year ago, but the 7th year of the counting of years as a nation arrived, such that even though the loan is only a year old, it's to be forgiven. Whoever would like to read, please say ani haba. If you are female, ani haba. All right, ani haba. Not to withhold lending money to a poor person because of the arrival of the year of rest. Right? This is when the land rests. As Deuteronomy chapter 15, verse 9 states, be careful lest an idea occur to you. This is an accepted general principle. Whenever the Torah uses expressions be careful, or the expression lest, or do not, a negative commandment, a restrictive commandment is involved. So the year of rest is called the Shemitah year. Miswa haba'ah. If you would like to read, please say ani haba or ani haba'ah.
Ani ha'aba.
All right, b'chavod. Go right ahead, b'chavod.
Not to withhold lending money to a poor person or providing him with his needs. As Deuteronomy 15:7 states, do not harden your heart. Thus, a person who gives charity fulfills a positive commandment, while one who spurns the opportunity to give not only fails to perform a positive commandment, but also transgresses a negative commandment.
All right, and this is not up to the judgment of the courts of Israel on an individual level, although plenty of commandments are, but this is not, as it's dependent on the ability of the person as well. So the commandment is that you shouldn't withhold giving charity when you know that it's within your ability, but to give charity to the point that you yourself will need to give charity to give charity to the point that you yourself will be in need of receiving charity is not the proper giving of charity, right? And that's not just a modern spin on it, but our sages themselves also said, I don't remember the exact amount that they stated, but they gave a percentage that if a person gives a certain percentage of their own livelihood as charity, that's a sin. And I'm paraphrasing, but Giving charity is a beautiful thing, but it's on the condition that our giving of charity does not make yourself a burden on the community so that they will need to give you charity as well because you keep giving everything that you have. And again, summarizing, the general idea is that you should give according to your means, but you shouldn't withhold when you are able, even if you're only just able to give a little, but give something if you're able to give it. And there's no need to give if you know it's going to be abused and the person is going to use it to harm themselves. And the Rambam Maimonides encouraged the giving of smaller quantities frequently, to give frequently, but give smaller quantities. And if everybody would give smaller quantities, then those smaller quantities would add up for the individuals receiving. So it would more likely help a greater amount of people because people would feel less inhibited to give if they felt less guilty for giving smaller amounts. And it would also fortify in the minds and in the traits and the behaviors of the people, it would fortify within them the habit of giving. Whereas when you only give larger amounts, you're going to be giving less, and that weakens the tendency to give. Right? So, of course, there's going to be some people who will be upset if you give them smaller amounts. You don't want to give such a small amount that it's truly like an insult, but you don't need to give large amounts. Right? It's better to give a little bit to a lot of people than to give a massive amount to just one person only once every 10 years. I think that's a very insightful observation on the part of Maimonides. Miswah haba'ah. If you would like to read, please say Miswah haba'ah.
Miswah haba'ah. Not to send away a Hebrew servant empty-handed when he goes free. As Deuteronomy chapter 15, verse 13 states, do not send him away empty-handed. Miswah haba'ah.
Right? If you would like to read, please say Ani rotze likro. If you're a female, Ani rotza likro. Okay, Ani rotze likro. I want to read Ani rotze likro. Not to demand payment of a debt from a poor person when one knows that he is impoverished, nor to cause him grief. As Exodus chapter 22, verse 24 states, do not behave like a creditor towards him. And these are beautiful miswah. These are beautiful commandments. Miswah haba'ah. Right? Ani rotze likro, I want to read, or ani rotza likro in the feminine.
Ani rotza likro.
Beautiful. Kol hakavod. Excellent. Kol hakavod.
Not to lend an interest to a Jew, as Leviticus 25:37 states, do not lend him your money at interest.
Okay. And this hurts a lot of people. They're like, oh, it's so offensive. Well, in the Bible, it doesn't explicitly say the word Jew, but it does distinguish. It does explicitly distinguish between your people as opposed to the idolaters. And we are kind of in a more complicated situation socially nowadays than we were when the Torah was given, because until historically speaking, relatively recently, only in the last 1,500 to 2,000 years, have there been non-Israelites, not even 2,000 years. It's less than 2,000 years because Christians started off relatively small and they didn't immediately become the massive population that they are now. So it wasn't until, historically speaking, relatively recently that the world was not overwhelmingly barbaric. I mean, even even in even in the current era, there are certain isolated tribes that do some pretty barbaric things. And there are even civilized people who sometimes do barbaric things, unfortunately. But when the Torah was given, the majority of humanity were still, for lack of a better word, like cavemen. They were sacrificing their children. They were putting their wives on icebergs when their husband would die, And I know that was not in the Middle East, but that that was in other parts of the world. And in the Middle East, they would do similar things. Uh, some women, and this continued even in India till the modern era, some women would be burned when their husband would die. This is insanity. And we did not want to strengthen these cultures. So yeah, we may give them loans, but we would demand interest to weaken them, and this would give them an impetus to want to join the people of Israel and reconsider their backward culture. So the Hebrew in the original text does not say Israelite, it doesn't say Jew, but it does clearly distinguish between your people and the idolaters. So that gives an opening that it would probably be, and what I'm about to say here is the mainstream consensus in the Jewish world. This is the mainstream consensus in the Jewish world. That when non-Israelites reach a level of ethical behavior, on a baseline ethical behavior, and they've taken it upon themselves also to not charge interest, at least when it comes to one-on-one, personal loans as opposed to like a bank loan. If they themselves are not charging interest, then we shouldn't charge interest to them either. Right? So it's kind of like we'll meet you where you're at, sort of a thing. That is the mainstream Jewish application of this commandment in the modern era, where a lot of non-Israelites have accepted upon themselves at least ethical behavior as well as this. But if they haven't, then we treat them accordingly. Right? Miswah haba'ah. If you would like to read, please say Ani rotze likro, or rotza likro for females. Ani rotza likro. I want to read.
Ani rosa likro.
Mitsuyan.
Not to borrow with interest, as inferred from Deuteronomy chapter 23, verse 20, which states, "Do not take interest from your brother." According to the oral tradition, this verse is interpreted as a prohibition, forbidding a borrower from paying interest to a lender.
Mitsuyan. Excellent. Miswah haba'ah. Next commandment. Miswah haba'ah. If you would like to read, please say Ani rotza likro. Or if you are a male, Ani rotze likro.
Ani rotza likro.
Bechavod. Go right ahead. Bechavod.
Not to intermediate between the borrower and the lender when interest is involved, not to act as a guarantor or a witness to such a loan, nor to draw up a contract for it, as Exodus 22:24 states, do not charge him interest.
Okay, and again, this is in the context of your people. Okay, if they are not your people, this did not apply. You guys feel free to look that up. I know that some people may be offended. Some viewers may be offended, but that is what the text says. You don't have to agree with it, but that's what the text teaches. The Torah definitely teaches that there's a difference between the people of Israel, those who are in covenant with God, and those who are not. But all are welcome to join the covenant. That's the caveat. Milah haba'ah, miswah haba'ah. Next commandment. Ani rotza likro, or ani rotze likro. I want to read.
Ani rosa likro.
Bechavod.
Not to delay payment of a worker, as Leviticus chapter 19, verse 13 states, do not hold back a worker's wages overnight.
Right, and here the halacha makes no distinction between whether it's an Israelite or a non-Israelite. Right, miswah haba'ah. Mi haba, who's next? Mi haba, or mi haba'ah, female.
Ani ha'aba.
All right, ha, ba, ah. B is in boy.
Haba'a.
Yes, you got it. Ani ha, ba, ah. One more time. Ani ha, ba, ah.
Ani
Ba, ah.
ha'ba'a.
Mitsuyan. One more time.
Ani ha'ba'a.
You got it. You got it.
Not to take security from a debtor by force, as Deuteronomy 24:10 states, Do not enter his home to take security.
i.e. IRS showing at your home with guns. All right. Miswa haba'a. Mi haba'a. Mi haba'a. Who's next?
Ani haba'a.
Bachavod.
Not to withhold the return of security to its owner when he needs it. As Deuteronomy chapter 24, verse 12 states, do not lie down to sleep with his security, i.e., do not lie down while holding his security. Instead, return it to him at night when he needs it at night.
Yan. Miswa haba'a. Ani haba.
I guess it's just the two of us.
Yeah, just the two of us.
Okay, not to take
But hey,
security.
you're learning Hebrew, and
Yes.
do you feel like you're picking up some of these words?
Yes, I haven't taken a class in months, so it's only through this class and a couple other places going to shul that I pick it up at all.
Every bit counts. It accumulates.
Yep.
Mitsuyan. Miswa haba'a. Bachavod. Go right ahead. Bachavod.
Not to take security from a widow, as Deuteronomy 24:17 states, do not take a widow's garment as security.
It's a terrible thing.
Yeah.
Miswa haba'a. Tur sheli. My turn. Tur sheli. Not to take utensils used in the preparation of food, as Deuteronomy 24 verse 6 states, do not take either the upper or lower millstone as a pledge. If someone would like to read, please say my turn in Hebrew. Tur sheli.
Tur sheli. Not to kidnap a Jewish person, as Exodus chapter 20, verse 13 states, do not steal. This refers to kidnapping.
All right. Excellent translation to make people hate Jews. Sometimes I hate it when they do that crap. And sometimes it's really inaccurate. This is more or less accurate to what it does actually say here, but instead of Jewish, it says Israel. And this is important, historically speaking, because a lot of people try to distinguish between Israelites and Jews. But the majority of times that you will see references to Jews in Jewish literature, the Hebrew says Israel. That's an Israelite. It'll often even say Israeli. It's the same as Israeli. Same exact word. Israeli and Jewish are the same thing in colloquial speech and colloquial usage of the word Jewish. Of course, the Samaritans we could also say are Israelites, but the overwhelming majority of the people of Israel, after the splitting of the northern and southern kingdoms of ancient Israel, ever since then, the overwhelming majority of the people of Israel were those who associated with the tribe, not the tribe of Judah, but the kingdom of Judah. It doesn't even mean that they were of the tribe of Judah, but they simply associated with the kingdom of Judah. And that's how colloquially the term Jewish came to refer to Israel generally. But in the Hebrew language, all through the millennia until the modern era, typically when we're talking about Jews, we're talking about Israelites, generally speaking. It's not a reference to people specifically of the tribe of Judah. If it's a text that is pre-splitting of the ancient kingdom of Israel, then yes. If you see the word Yehudi, it's probably referring to someone from the tribe of Judah. But in literature post-split of the northern and southern kingdoms, that's not an assumption we can make intellectually honestly, unless the context warrants it. All right, so that concludes the reading of the 13 weekly reading of the 13 commandments from the 613 everlasting statutes of the covenant between God and Israel. On Miswa Aseh, proactive commandment number 38 in Sefer HaMiswoth. Who can tell us what is Sefer HaMiswoth and how is it different from what we just read? Sefer HaMiswoth means Book of Commandments. It's a compendium, a compiling of the 613 commandments organized by Maimonides. It doesn't mean you have to agree with the exact order that he did. Nobody is extremely dogmatic like that. We don't hold these halachic works to be equal to the Torah, but they are the traditional and highly revered ways in which we've systematized the commandments in a way that makes it more easy for a person to study, more quickly without having to read through the entire text of the Torah. Keep in mind, historically, people did not have a Torah, a version of it just sitting around their house. There's a lot of things we take for granted in the modern era. They would often hear only a small section of it a few times a week. So creating lists that would be easy to memorize greatly assisted in our recall of God's commandments, our ability to review his commandments, even when we don't have access to the scroll, right? And although these things are accessible now easily in the modern era, but who's to say that there may be some kind of collapse of society and suddenly these flimsy paper books that we have everywhere, they don't last that long. If we had some kind of a cultural collapse, technological collapse, it would only take about 50 years to 100 years that people would not have access to Torah, to printed editions of the Bible. And so these lists that we're looking at now are extremely practical on the in the big picture. Right? So this is the code of 613 commandments by Maimonides, different from what we just read, which was super terse. Right? These are still terse, but they're about 1 to 2 paragraph explanations of each commandment. That is what we call Sefer HaMiswot, the Book of Commandments. Mi haba tur. Who's next in line? If you would like to read, please say Tur Sheli.
Tur Sheli.
B'chavod.
That is that he commanded a high priest to marry a virgin, and that is his saying, he shall marry a woman who is a virgin. And they said in the explanation, Rabbi Akiva was designated as a mamzer, even a child resulting from the union of those prohibited by a positive commandment.
Whereas others would say it was only those who are the result of a union prohibited by a restrictive commandment, right? So this was his opinion that, in contrast to other opinions, he would say even if they're prohibited by a positive commandment, such as this.
And the explanation of this is that it is when a high priest would have sexual intercourse with someone who is not a virgin, about which he is prohibited by a positive commandment. For the principle with us is that a negative commandment that is derived from a positive commandment is also a positive commandment. And behold, the regulations of this commandment have already been explained in Yevamot, in Kedushin, and in Ketuvot.
Mitsuyan. See Parashat Emor, that's a reading of the Torah. Mishneh Torah as well, you can find this elaborated upon in greater detail in the book of Mishneh Torah called Forbidden Intercourse, Isurei Bi'ah, chapter 17. Kol hakavod. All right, let's jump into our topic of today, as if we weren't already doing so. Hopefully these appear okay for you guys on the screen. I never know what it's going to do. Sefirat HaOmer. Sefirat HaOmer, Hebrew. All right, so these are terms related to Sefirat HaOmer, and there are more terms than we see here, but this is an introduction. We'll have a few other Hebrew classes related to this before we finish the counting of the Omer. So, Sefirat HaOmer means, who can tell us? Ma ze Sefirat HaOmer? What is Sefirat HaOmer? Ma ze Sefirat HaOmer? Who can tell us what is? Yes,
counting of the Omer?
That's right. Sefirat means counting of Ha-vi-omer, the sheaf, the barley sheaves. These are the bundles of barley that would be collected, right, and then brought as an offering. Right? Sefirat ha-omer, Hebrew. Miha babatur, who's next? Who would like to read? Please say Ani Tur Sheli. Tur Sheli.
Ani Tur Sheli.
All right. Oh,
English.
this needs to be hidden. Okay, go ahead. You can read the English.
You shall count for yourself from the morrow after the day of rest, from the day that you brought the sheaf of the waving. They shall be 7 complete weeks. Vayikra
Excellent.
23:15.
All right, it's from Leviticus chapter 23, verse 15. Do we have someone who would like to read it in Hebrew?
I can try.
Go right ahead. B'chavod. You can skip this part down here.
Okay. That first letter, is that a ve?
It's an U. It is the letter Vav, but it's
Okay.
an U.
Useferat, sefar,
Usfar.
usfar, tame,
Good. Now say it a few times.
usfartem,
Yeah,
usfartem,
usfartem, usfartem.
usfartem, usfartem,
All right, that
la,
means, and you shall count.
la, kem, kem or lachem?
Anytime there's no dot, it will produce a sound that can be elongated. Right, so k cannot be elongated. Therefore, it's lachem.
Lachem,
Usfartem lachem, and you shall count
usfartem,
for
lachem,
yourself.
mi, ma, ha, ra,
Excellent. Mim maharath. Mim maharath.
mi, ma, ha, ra.
From the morrow, i.e. from the day after. Mim maharath. Milahaba'at. Next word. Milahaba'at.
Hashabat,
Excellent. Hashabath. Mim maharath. Mim maharath. Hashabath.
mi,
Right?
maharat, hashabat.
Excellent. So, and you shall count for yourselves from the morrow of the Sabbath. So, there are different ancient traditions regarding what this Sabbath refers to, but the overwhelming majority of the people of Israel, even in ancient times, held that this Sabbath here refers to the first day of the Passover holiday, because when God gives his commandments for the Passover holiday, he calls the first day a Shabbat, right? However, if we just look at the verse by itself and we ignore Jewish tradition, then it's certainly possible to understand the Sabbath is referring to more than one thing. It is certainly possible. But as we'll see, if we carefully analyze the verses, there is some support for the traditional Jewish opinion as opposed to others in the text itself. We'll get to that. It's in the verse itself. All right. It's less obvious in the translations, but it will be clear. Okay. So, and you shall count for yourselves from the morrow, that is the day after the Sabbath, the day of rest, right? What day of rest? In the mainstream tradition of the historical people of Israel, it is from the day after the first day of Passover, which God calls a Sabbath. Miyom havi achan. Miyom havi achan. Miyom means from day. Havi means, well, havi'ah means the bringing of. Cham, y'all's, your, plural you. So from the day of your bringing. What from the day of your bringing? You shall count for yourselves from the day of your bringing. Omer, the sheaf, and we know contextually it's the barley sheaf, the bundles of barley. Omer, hattanufa, of the waving offering. Hattanufa. Shava, Shava, 7. Shabbotheth, Shabbotheth, 7 Sabbaths. Now, if you look at different translations, you will see that some do not translate this as Sabbath, and there's a reason for it. 7 Sabbaths. Is this talking about 7 regular seventh day of the week, i.e., Saturdays? Is it saying 7 Saturdays? Or is it talking about something else? We will see. And the very next phrase lets us know. Tamimuth tihyana. Tihyana. All right. Temimuth means complete. Temimuth, complete. Right? Just like it says in the famous verse, The Torah of the Lord is whole, restoring the soul. The Torah of the Lord, the law of the eternal, is whole, it's complete, restoring the soul. Same word. Torah Adonai tamima, tamima, meshivat nofesh. And this is tamimeth. It's just the plural form of that same word. Tihyano, they shall be. They shall be. So whatever these Shabbatot are, whatever this Shabbat is, we need to count 7 ones of them, and they need to be 7 complete ones. Okay? If this is talking about just a regular weekday Sabbath, it's kind of odd that you only need to count 7 ones, but they need to be complete. What does that mean? Why would you not count 7 complete ones? So it's not widely known, but in Hebrew literature, sometimes the word Sabbath also means a week. And this even gets carried over in the New Testament Greek. Some places where the word week is translated from the Greek of the Gospels, in some of those places, it literally says Sabbath. And this continues even in Aramaic. Sometimes Sabbath means week, not the 7th day of the week, but an entire week. So in this verse itself, we see that the word Sabbath can be used in multiple ways, right? If this is just referring to the regular weekday Sabbath, then the addition of the words complete is unnecessary, right? There is no controversy among any of the ancient sects of Israel that you need to count 7 weekly 7th-day Sabbaths. They all know that if you're counting from one Sabbath to the next, one 7th-day Sabbath to the next, it's going to be complete. So this entire thing becomes redundant. It's unnecessary. And if the Sabbath mentioned in the first part of the verse, from the day after the Sabbath, if this first Sabbath is a weekday Sabbath, a regular 7th-day weekday Sabbath, again, this is redundant. It's unnecessary. Because if you're counting 7 weekly day, 7th-day Sabbaths from the beginning, then you have no need to specify that they should be complete. However, if it's talking about the first day of Passover, which could fall on any day of the week, if that's the Sabbath it's talking about, then it makes sense to add a clarification that they should be complete weeks and not partial weeks. Because you could say, if the first day of Passover was on a Wednesday, for example, you could say that, okay, I'm going to start counting 7 weeks, and I stop. You need to know whether you should count a week of 7 days, or would even just the half week that remains from the Wednesday to the next Shabbat, weekly Shabbat, would that also count as a complete week, right? Because it's a week, right? But it's not a complete week. So you need to know that. And that makes it sensible to add this clarification of complete weeks. And that's an explanation that is not necessary if the Shabbat mentioned in the beginning of the verse is a regular weekday Sabbath. Right? Anybody have any questions about that? I probably just lost everyone. It's okay. Not everybody's familiar with the controversies, but there are controversies regarding when you start the counting, right? So all that explanation was to say that if the opinion, which is popular among Samaritans and Karaites, if the opinion that is popular among Samaritans and Karaites, that you begin the counting from a weekday Sabbath, the regular 7th day of the week, then this addition of the term complete weeks is unnecessary. Right? Okay, we're going to break down this verse. Uspartem lechem. Does anybody want to read this first phrase?
Uspartem lechem.
Excellent. Make sure you have friction with that chaf. Lachem.
Lachem.
There you go. Right. And you shall count, and you shall count. All right, so usfartem, that is, and you shall count for yourselves. Okay, some people, or rather, some translations don't translate vilachem, but it's kind of emphasizing who should be doing it for yourselves, and it's in plural as opposed to singular. This is how we derive that the obligation to count the days is on each person and not just like on a representative of the entire nation in the temple. So it's not you singular, it's you plural. You shall count for yourselves. Right? Who would like to read the next line? Please say Tur Shali if you would like to read. My turn.
Usually,
B'chavod, excellent. Go right ahead. Remember the
me,
hirik is an E.
me,
Yes, ma'am.
maharat,
Excellent. Read it 3 times.
me, maharat,
One
me,
more time. Make sure you
maharat,
clearly enunciate the T at the end.
me, maharat,
One more
me,
time.
maharat,
Excellent.
hashabat, hashabat,
Excellent. All right, let's read both of them together 3 times.
me, maharat, hashabat,
One more,
me,
2 more times.
maharat, hashabat, me, maharat, hashabat.
Look at that. That was fluent at the end. It's fluent.
Nice.
That was beautiful. All right, me means from. Mahar is morrow or tomorrow. The at suffix associates it with the next word. So from the morrow of, from the day tomorrow of what? Hashabbat. So from the day after the Shabbat. Okay. And Shabbat is a day of cessation, of rest. Milah haba. Next word. Mihaba. Who's next? Mihaba.
Ani haba'a.
Bachalo.
Miyom havi achem.
All right. Havi achem. Yom havi achem.
Miyom havi achem.
Mitsuyan. Excellent. Maze miyom. What is miyom? Miyom.
Not remembering
All
the
right.
prefix, but
Just
it's
like in the
something day.
in the one before it, it means from. So
Okay.
also here it's from. So from the day.
From the day.
All right, and then havi achem. Anybody here familiar with the Hebrew verb ba or ba'a? It's in the expression ani haba'a.
Would be next.
So it is used for next. Haba or haba'a means the next. It literally means the coming. Coming. So ba literally means coming. And it's interesting that this usage of coming is also used in other languages. I'm pretty sure even in Spanish, the common way of saying something next, you're literally saying the thing that's coming. Right? So the root bet aleph means coming. The he at the begin is causative, to cause something to come. In English, we do not say to cause something to come. We narrow it down to a single word, to bring. So the bringing of, Habi'ah is the bringing of, and then the chem is possessive. You're bringing. So from the day of, and the of is implied, from the day of, you're bringing. Miyom habi'achem. Go ahead and read that 3 times.
Miyom havi achem. Miyom havi achem. Miyom havi achem.
Uyan. Right, from the day of your bringing. Milah haba'ah. Mihaba. Who's next? Mihaba. Please say ani haba or ani haba'a.
Ani ha'aba.
Ha.
Aba'a.
There you go. If you say abba'a, it's like saying I'm the father. You gotta be careful with that.
Yeah. I want to get it
Abba
wrong.
is father.
Ani ha'ba'a.
Yes, say it 2 more times.
Ani ba'a. Ani ha ba'a. Ani ha ba'a.
You got it.
It just feels strange still, so practice.
Ah, you're doing great. All right. Bechavod, go right ahead. Bechavod.
Et amor
Accent on the first syllable. Omer.
umer. Umer. Et umer. Umer. Ha. No. Ha.
You see the 2 dots under the tav?
Yeah.
So the letter tav here is the second letter
Hat.
from the right. So the 2 dots underneath it is called a shwa. Shwa. And this concept also exists in English. And guess what they call it in English? A shwa.
Emphasis.
They call it a shwa. Even in normative English grammar, they call it a shwa. So in Hebrew, there are 2 types of shwa. It either indicates the closing of a syllable, the previous syllable, in which case it does not represent a vowel sound. We call that a silent shwa, when it doesn't represent a vowel sound. It's just indicating the end of the previous syllable. The other type of shwa is a sounded shwa. In that case, when a shwa is sounded, it is its own syllable. It's not the previous syllable. It is its own syllable, but it's an unaccented syllable. So there are 2 types of shwa, sounded shwa and silent shwa. The sounded shwa, when it is representing a vowel, when it is sounded, it is always an unaccented syllable. It's short, a very short sound. And that is the case here. Anytime a letter that is over a shwa has a dot inside of it, as we have here, it has a dot inside of it. Anytime that happens, it's an indication that this is its own syllable. It's its own vowel. The shwa is a vowel in and of itself. It's not silent, but it's a short vowel. It's just a short eh. So not hot, but it's hate.
Okay.
That's 2 syllables. Hate.
Hate.
Okay,
No.
so Deb, tell me, how many types of shwa are there?
2.
Main types of, yes. And what are they?
Silent and sounded.
Excellent. And whenever you see that the letter on top of the shwa has a dot in it, what does that tell you?
It is a sounded.
Correct.
Give a sound.
That's right. Anytime the letter on top of the shwa has a dot in it, that lets you know that the shwa is symbolizing a short vowel sound. It's not silent. Okay, and finally, when it's a sounded shwa, if it's a sounded shwa, will it be the accented syllable or will it be an unaccented syllable?
Unaccented.
Excellent. Kol hakavod, mitsuyan, mamash tov. That's excellent. All right, go right ahead. Bechavod.
Hatenu.
Mm-hmm.
Is that fa at the end or?
That's right. Put it all together.
Hatenufa.
Mitsuyan. That was beautiful. Say it 3 times.
Hatenufa.
Excellent. Now let's do all 3 together. Remember the accents on the o here.
Et umer. Et umer. Hatenufa.
2 more times.
Et umer. Hatenufa.
Mitsuyan. 1 more time.
Et umer. Hatenufa.
Mitsuyan. Excellent. And this is what you need to do when you're practicing reading Hebrew directly from the Bible or any text. Break it into chunks. There are commas here. So those commas are opportunities to make it more digestible, more easy, instead of trying to master the whole thing all at once. If you break it down and then you say each little phrase 3 times, I promise you that after you've done that, then if you come back and try to read the whole thing, it'll be a lot easier. Might not be perfect, but it'll be a lot easier. All right. Et Umer hatenufa. What is et? Who can tell me what et means?
Has something to do with prepositions or something to do with the word it's pointing to.
Correct. That's all it does. It just says that the previous action mentioned in a passage, that action is being directed toward or applied to the next word that comes after it. That's all it means. It's usually not able to be translated to English. There's not really an equivalent to that in English. Sometimes it could be kind of equivalent to the word at in English, which interestingly sounds similar to et, as if you say he hit at the ball. We wouldn't normally say that, but it kind of gives you a grasp of the idea. He hit at the ball. That at is letting you know that the action of hitting is directed toward the ball. Okay? So that's just one example and doesn't always translate that easily to English. Umer, what is an umer? Maze umer.
A bundle of wheat.
Yeah, we got it right here. Or of any kind of grain. Right? It's a sheaf. English word is a sheaf. Right? That's a bundle of grain. Maze tenufa. Ha means the. Hat tenufa. What is tenufa?
Something to do with complete weeks.
All
Or
right.
waving?
Don't forget that.
Waving.
Go
Maybe the
ahead.
waving.
Yes. Yes. So it refers to a type of offering in the temple. What is called the wave offering. Okay, so Umar Hattanufa means the wave offering of the wheat bundles. Okay. Oh, we have two F's here. So wave offering of the wheat bundles. That's why we call it Sefirat HaOmer, the counting of the not wheat bundles, the grain bundles. All right, Mi Hababatur, who's next?
אני הבאה.
Bachavod.
שבע,
Sheva, accent the first syllable.
שבע.
Yeah. If it would be Shava, we would need a Shava under the Shin to make it unaccented. Right? Sheva.
שבתות.
Excellent. Shabbatheth. Let's put them together
שבתות.
3 times.
שבע, שבתות.
Right? Accent that first syllable in Sheva.
שבע. Did I
Okay.
do it?
Yeah. Okay, let's do it 2 more times, accenting the first syllable in Sheva.
שבע. שבע. שבע.
All right, now say both of them 3 times.
שבע, שבתות.
Sheva. Sheva. When you put them together, make sure you're accenting the first syllable.
שבע, שבתות. שבע. Did I do it?
Yes, you got it.
Okay. שבע, שבתות. שבע, שבתות.
Excellent. You got it. You got it. That's good. And it makes a difference because there's other Hebrew words that sound similar, and the only difference is accent. Like if you say Shava, that means a Shawa. That means something that's equal instead of 7. Sheva, when you accent the first, is 7. Sheva. This would be less of an issue if popular pronunciations of Hebrew distinguished between vet and vav, but they don't. So when we don't distinguish between vet and vav, it sounds exactly the same when the accent is off.
Mm.
All right. So what does sheva mean?
7.
Nachon. As opposed to shawa. Shawa is that little vowel of the 2 dots above each other. And it is from a word for equate. And for some reason, well, I can kind of understand it. In Arabic, that same root means to make something. Make something. I guess the equating of something is the making of something. All right, and then Shabbotheth. Maze Shabbotheth.
Sabbaths.
That's right. What kind of Sabbaths? How many
Sabbaths?
Say it again.
Complete
Yes.
complete Sabbaths?
Yeah. But excuse me, we haven't gotten to the word complete yet.
Okay.
How many types of Sabbaths are there in Hebrew? Just name a few. You don't got to give the number. You have
Well, there's for Yom Tov, and there's the weekly Shabbat.
right. So we have the weekly 7th day. That's called a Shabbat, a Sabbath. And we, like you said, Yom Tov refers to the divinely mandated Sabbath days, which may or may not be on a weekly Sabbath. Okay. And they're called a Sabbath because there's a cessation of industrious labor, just like on the weekly seventh day. And then we have a Shabbat, which is a week. Sometimes Shabbat just simply refers to a week.
Right.
All right, 7 weeks. Mihaba. Oh, Mihaba'a. Who's next? Mihaba'a.
Anihaba'a.
Bachol. Go right ahead.
I've seen this before. Te mimot.
That's right. This is the word for whole or complete. In that famous verse, the Torah of the Lord is whole. The Torah of the Lord is whole. Torah Adonai tamima. Tamima. And this is just the plural, tamimot.
Mimot. Ti.
Accent on the yeah. Yeah.
Tiye. No.
That's
Tiye.
right. Tihyena. Tihyena.
No.
Go ahead and say it 3 times.
Tiyeno. Tiyeno. Tiyeno.
Mitsuyan. Now let's put them together 3 times.
Tamimot.
Tamimot. Tihyena.
Tamimot. Tihena. Tehien. I just forgot how to say that one. Te.
Ti.
Heya.
Ti.
Ti. He.
Yes. No.
No. Ti. No.
Right. That is complete weeks shall they be, or they shall be. Tihyena means they shall be. Okay, and what is the they? The they are the Shabbatot, the week, the Sabbaths. So you got to ask yourself, why would it not be 7 complete ones? Well, because it's a week. And it's because the first Sabbath mentioned in the verse is not talking about the weekly seventh day Sabbath. So it could fall on any day of the week. That's the whole reason for this. Okay. I will leave what we do next up to you guys. If you want, we can do a quick quiz, a quick recap, right? Anybody can speak up. I will read the phrase and you guys tell me what it means. Okay? If you want, we can do that, or we can go on to another quick list, less intensive than what we just did. What do you feel like?
Let's review.
All right, excellent. That's the right answer. All right, so usfartem. Everybody repeat. Usfartem.
Usfarta. On mic.
Everybody, anybody who wants. Repeat. Usfartem.
Usfartem.
Lachem. Lachem.
Lachem.
Usfartem. Lachem.
Usfartem lachem.
Okay, now whoever would like, you can translate. Maze, what is Maze usfartem lachem? What is usfartem lachem?
You shall count for yourselves.
All right, well, don't eat the whole cookie. Leave some for the rest of us. That's right. You shall count, and the lachem is for yourselves. Excellent. All right. Milah haba'a. Amira haba'a. Next statement. Mi ma harath. Mi ma harat. Everybody say mi ma harat.
Maharath
Hashabath. Hashabath.
Shabath.
All right. One more time. We're going to say both together. Mi ma harath hashabath.
Mi maharath hashabath.
Hashabat.
Mitsuyan. Mi ma harath hashabath. Okay. Let's give a little pause. What is mi ma harath hashabath? We can begin just with mi. What does the prefix mi mean?
By.
Me. Me means from or than. It can mean either of those, from or than. In this case, it means from. Okay, me means from. Mahar means tomorrow in Hebrew. Mahar is tomorrow. Maharat is the day after something else. The at means we're associating it with the next word. So from the tomorrow of, or from the morrow of. Mim maharat, from the morrow of. Hashabath. Maze hashabath.
The Sabbath.
That's right. So what does mim maharat hashabath mean?
From the
From the
day
day
after.
after the Shabbat.
Exactly. Bachavod. Okay. Right. And if we look at it in isolation, it could be from the day after the weekly seventh day Sabbath, or it could be from the day after the Sabbath of Passover, which could fall on any day of the week, or it could say from the day after the week, right? There's multiple ways you could look at it. In the tradition of the majority of ancient Israel, classically, what is the Sabbath referred to?
Passover.
That's right. From the day after the first day of Passover, which God declared is a Sabbath. All right. Milah haba'a, amira haba'a. Next statement. Miyom. Everybody say miyom.
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 Havi achem. Havi achem.
Havi Achem.
Achem.
All right. Miyom.
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 Havi achem. Havi achem.
Havi Achem.
Achem.
All right. Let's put it together. Miyom havi achem.
Miyom Havi Achem.
Achem.
Okay. Whoop. You didn't see anything.
Too late.
Maze me. What does me mean?
From.
And it
From.
correct. And this is specifically when it's as a prefix. If it's standing alone by itself with a mem and a yud, it would be different. It would be who, as in a question. Who is this? Right? But as a prefix, me means from. It can also mean than, depending on context. So what does miyom mean?
From
From
the day.
That's it. Right? And then havi'ah, maze havi'ah. Now, the he at the beginning of a word usually means the. Usually, he at the beginning of the word means the or the, right? As we see here in the previous. However, if you see that under the he, if the first letter in the word is he and it has a shwa next to it, as we see here, that never means the. If you see that, it does not mean the. Absolutely would not mean the. In such a case, it almost certainly means causative. It's indicating that the word it's attached to is causative. To cause something, in this case, to come. Cause to come. And in English, we say that with the word bring. You should bring. Bring means to cause something to come. Right? So, and from the day of causing to come, you're causing to come. I.e., in the day of your bringing. The day of your bringing. Milah haba'a. Next word. Amira haba'a. Next phrase. All right. Eth Omer. Everybody say it. Eth Omer.
Omer.
Beautiful. Eth Omer.
Eth
Maze
Omer.
Omer. Maze Omer. What is an Omer?
Sheaf.
Yes, it's a sheaf. It's a bundle of grain. And maze et. What is et? Maze et.
It's pointing the previous verb to what it's referring to.
Yes. So the bringing, that's describing an action. The bringing of what? The bringing of the Omer. The et is just letting us know what it is, what that previous verb is pointing to, as you said. So at Omer, and then maze hattanufa. Everybody say hattanufa. Hattanufa.
Tanufa.
How many syllables are in that word?
4.
Yes, 4. If we made this schwa silent, as many people might do, then we've deleted an entire syllable from the word. So not hat nufa, but rather it's hattenufa, hattenufa. All right, this is a good place to point out if we're unsure whether a shawa, the two little dots on top of each other, if we're unsure whether or not they should be sounded or silent, it's better to err on the side of caution and make it
Silent.
silent. Yeah, if you don't know for sure. If you don't know for sure. The reason is because that is the most common error that people make. And if we're going to make a mistake, it's better to make a mistake that is more commonly made than a mistake that almost nobody makes. Right? It's like if I say in English as a non-native English speaker, if I'm trying to learn English, it's better that I say wanna even in a formal speech, even if I'm, trying to apply to a job and I write it, in text. It's better that I make a mistake and write wanna rather than wena, if I'm in the interview and I say, I wanna go to the next meeting. I went out, go to you don't want to say that. It's okay if you say wanna, but not wena, you know? So in Hebrew, it's normal to make mistakes, but what we want to do is try to lessen the abnormal mistakes and set ourselves up so that if we make a mistake, it's more likely to be something that still sounds natural, even if it's not technically correct. And that with shawaz is making it silent. People more often make it silent when it shouldn't be than make it sounded when it shouldn't be. So that's what we want to do. So it's better to say hat nufa rather than to do something funky if we're unsure. All right. hat tenufa. And what is tenufa? What does that mean, tenufa?
It's that offering,
All right. What kind of an offering?
the wave offering.
Nachon. Tenufa is the wave offering. And the word literally just means waving. So the sheaf of waving is what it literally means. We know it's an offering by context.
Mm.
All right. Amirah haba'a. Next statement. Sheva. Everybody say Sheva.
Sheva.
Shabbotheth. Shabbotheth.
Shabbathoth.
Okay. Sheva Shabbotheth. Sheva Shabbotheth.
Sheva Shabbathoth.
Excellent. Why is it important that we accent the first syllable in Sheva?
Because it changes the meaning of the word.
That's right. Wah, wah. But hey, we won't forget it now, are we?
Hopefully not.
Okay, Sheva means what?
7
Nachon, Sheva is 7. מה זה Shabbotheth?
weeks.
Nachon. So Sheva Shabbotheth is 7 weeks. 7 weeks. And these are 7 weeks. It doesn't even imply per se that there's resting, right? It's just a colloquial way that Shabbat is sometimes used in ancient Hebrew. Take joy and comfort in the fact that it is not used this way in modern Hebrew. It might in some really exceptional niche literature, like in rabbinic literature, it might occasionally, but in regular, everyday spoken Hebrew, Shabbat never means week. That's only in ancient Hebrew. All right. Temimuth. Everybody say it. Temimuth.
Temimuth.
Temimuth. Temimuth. Odpam. Yeah. Yes. How do we know that it's Temimoth and not Tmimot? How do we know it's not Tmimot, but rather Temimoth? In other words, how do we know that the Shawa in under the first letter is sounded?
Because there's a dagesh.
Nachon, that's right. Nachon. And there's another way. Because Shawa, when it's under the first letter of a word, it's always sounded. It should always be sounded. Okay? Tamimoth. If you were unsure, if it slipped your mind, what would you do?
If I forgot both of those, I would act like it was silent.
Yes, that's the smart thing to do. Right? But you can rest assured, if you remember it, that anytime Shawa is under the first letter of a word or under a letter with a dagesh, a dot, it should always be sounded. All right. Temimoth. תהיינה. תהיינה.
Tihiena.
נכון. תהיינה. Right, let's put them together. תמימות. תהיינה. תמימות.
Temimoth. Tihiena.
תהיינה.
Yeah.
מה זה תמימות? מה זה? What is that? מה זה תמימות? מה זה means what is. מה זה תמימות? Does temimoth mean imperfect, complete, or fun? Take a guess.
Complete.
Temimoth means complete. All right. And how do we say it in singular? Temimoth is plural. How do we say it in singular?
Tamim?
Yes. If it's masculine, describing something masculine, it's tamim. If it's describing something feminine, like Torah, it would be feminine. Tamima. Torah, tamima. Right? And tihyana means she shall be. I'm sorry, they shall be. They shall be. And it's feminine, they shall be. יפה מאוד, כל הכבוד. All right. Miss Heather, are you with us?
Yes.
I want you to translate the first little phrase right here. Read it and then translate it.
Usfar the Usfartem lachem means and you shall count for yourselves.
Excellent. Where do you see the you in you shall count? Where is that here in usfartan?
The you?
The u at the beginning means and.
No, I was questioning.
In English, yeah,
what?
the you, Y-O-U. Where, how do we know it's and you shall count from this? What part of this word means you, plural you? Yep. Okay, so it's the tem. So sfar is count and the tem is y'all. Y'all count. Right? Now the lachem for yourselves. I mean, that's all that remains. Okay, one more test. Heather, read the next little phrase and translate. تقري وتترجمي. تقري وتترجمي.
Mimaharath Hashabath.
Mitsuyan. Read it one more time in Hebrew.
Mimaharath Hashabath.
Excellent. Okay, tetargemi. Break it down. Translate. Tetargemi.
From the day after the Sabbath.
Excellent. And where do you see the word from?
The first mem.
Nachon. And how do you know it's of? From the day after of the next Sabbath. That's going to be the at. The at. Right? And what is this Sabbath referring to?
It's referring to the festival of Pesach.
Yes, the first day of it. All right, kol hakavod. All right, Miss Deb, you with us?
Bayom.
Nachon, miyom.
Miyom.
Havi achem. Havi achem.
Achem. Havi achem.
All right, maze miyom. What is miyom?
After the day?
There's a prefix mi. What does the prefix mi mean?
My? No.
A lot of times the E sound does mean my, but only at the end of words.
Okay. From?
Me.
No.
Yes, from.
It's
Me? From
Miyom.
what?
From the day.
Yes. Miyom, from the day. Havi achem.
Havi achem means the day of your counting.
Right? So that would be sfarchem. Havi achem. There's a chem suffix. That means yours. Or,
Your.
right? And this is a gerund. It's a noun that refers to an action. That means you could translate it either as a verb or a noun. Technically, it's a noun, though. The bringing of yours, meaning your bringing. So from the day of your bringing. So where is the your, plural you, y'all's? Where is that in?
Shem.
Yes, that's right. And means the bringing of something. So from the day of your bringing. All right, let's keep going. Tikri wa tatargimi. Read and translate.
Et Umer.
Say it again.
The Umer.
All right, the Umar. What is the Umar?
The sheaf.
Akhon. That's right.
Tefina.
One more time.
Hatefina.
We're flipping the letters at the end. All right, read it again slowly.
Tefuna. No. Ha. I can't remember. New.
You got it. You got it. By the way, you got precedence for the flipping of the letters. That's one of the ways in which different Semitic languages differentiate from each other. Sometimes it's the same original word, but in one of the Semitic languages, let's say Aramaic or Arabic, they might do exactly what you did, and they may say tefuna instead of tenufa.
Tenufa.
And that kind of thing happens in every language. But if you keep that in mind, if you're ever reading Aramaic parts of the Bible, if you keep that in mind, you might read a word that you think, oh, I don't know this Aramaic word. But if you remember that sometimes two letters flip positions, it might actually be that you know that word from Hebrew and you can perceive it in the unrecognizable Aramaic if you just flip the order of the letters. It's useful to keep in mind. All right. Maze Umar Hattanufa. What is Umar Hattanufa? Maze.
Sheaf. Wave offering.
Nachon. All right. Heather, Tur Shalach, your turn.
Sheva Shabbathos.
How did you do it so perfectly? I will never.
Lots of practice.
All right.
Get something wrong enough time.
Maze Sheva Shabbathos.
7 weeks.
All right. And next? Go ahead and read the whole. Yeah, you can go ahead and read the whole line, that whole final line.
Okay. Sheva Shabbathos Temimoth Tiheyena.
All right. Tihyana. All right.
Tihyena.
Maze Sheva Shabbathos Temimoth Tihyana.
7 weeks.
What kind of weeks should they be?
Complete.
Right? And then the tihyana is they shall be. Female.
They shall be.
Feminine. All right. Kol hakavod.
I have a question about that real quick. That last line,
okay.
the last word,
yeah,
has the 2 vavs, and that made me think of Hashem's name.
Okay, yeah, that makes sense because sometimes in texts, instead of writing out the full 4-letter name, they'll just put 2 little yuds or apostrophe even. Yeah, very good. But here, it's just what's called the full spelling of the word. Hebrew has a shorter spelling of a word, or many words. There's a shorter spelling, and then there's a longer spelling. And this is done to help assist a reader, especially if they're less familiar with Hebrew. It assists their reading. And so what this does is, if there was only one yud here, and you weren't very familiar with Hebrew, you might read it as, you may not know to read it as either tihyena or tahina. You could read it either as tahina or tihyena, if there's just one yud. If you read it as tahina, then you're reading the yud as only a vowel and not also as a consonant y. Tahina, there's no y in there, it's just an e, right? And that's a possibility. If you see it with the 2 yuds, then you know for sure that you got to pronounce a y sound. So that's the reason, right, for the difference between full spelling and imperfect spelling, as this. All right. Here we have. Go ahead. You had another question?
No, I just have to plug in my laptop dice.
Uh-oh.
Okay.
All right.
Okay.
Let's read. Let's read the vocabulary for the period of time known as Sefirat Omer, the counting of the Omer. So there are many other words that we may learn in a few more weeks when we come back to Hebrew, the Hebrew class, the Mishnah walk. But this is going to start us off for words that are commonly encountered during this time of the year. So let's read it together. You can read in the transliteration or in the Hebrew letters. Number one, you guys can repeat after me. Sefira, Sefira.
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 Omer,
Omer.
Se'ira, Se'ira.
Se'ora.
Qasir, Qasir.
Qasir.
Oh, look at that. That oof was perfect. Qasir, Qasir.
Qasir.
Tikkun, Tikkun, Tikkun.
Tikkun.
All right, Tikkun, Tikkun.
Tikkun.
Got it. Midderf, Midderf, Midderf.
Midos.
Hasad, Hasad.
Hesed.
Hesed.
All right. Gevura, Gevura.
Gavura.
Gevura.
Tif'ereth, Tif'ereth.
Eret.
Tifereth.
Nesah, Nesah,
Nesa.
Nesah.
Nesa.
Nesah. Hud, Hud.
Hood.
Hod.
Yesod, Yesod.
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 All right, Deb, I want you to read through this quickly. You can read the Hebrew and then tell us what each word means.
Sephira.
Safi, fi. Two E's is like an E and like,
Sephira.
yeah, Safira.
Sephira. Counting. Omer. Chief.
All right, Ömer, accent the Ö, Ömer.
Omer.
Chief.
Seora. Barley.
Se'ora, Se'ora.
Seora.
So Se'ora is barley.
Barley. Kasera is barley. Oh, sorry.
Se'ora.
Seora is barley.
There we go.
Kasir is harvest.
And when you see an S with a dot under it, that's letting you know it's the letter Saudi as opposed to
Saudi.
Sin or Samit.
So the pronunciation is not TS, you said, and it's not a S.
Correct.
It's
So
what?
in modern Hebrew, it is TS, generally speaking. There are exceptions. There are some people in modern Hebrew who use the classical pronunciation of Saudi, even in their spoken modern Hebrew. I do it sometimes. I really try not to. I'm not against it. I wish I would do it, but I just get too self-conscious doing it. But I have met several rabbis, great scholars who, even in their regular everyday Hebrew, they use Saudi instead of the TS. The TS sound is coming from the Ashkenazi European Jewish pronunciation of Hebrew, which is a loss of some of the Semitic sounds because they were in a part of the world where there's no other Semitic languages being spoken. So they didn't succeed to preserve that sound, and they kind of supplemented it with the next closest sounding sound that they had in the languages that they were exposed to on an everyday basis. Right, so German, for example, does have ts type sounds. So they turned the Saudi into a ts, whereas Arabic, being a super close sister language to the Hebrew language, has almost all the sounds of the Hebrew language in Arabic. And that made it easier for Middle Eastern Jews to preserve a lot of these sounds. So it's actually closer to an a regular S sound than to a TS sound, but it is not a regular S sound. It's what's called a pharyngalized S. So it's not like a regular English S. But if you are not yet comfortable making that weird type of S, it's better to just do an S sound than a TS if you want to read it in ancient Hebrew or classical Hebrew. Right? In modern Hebrew, it's perfectly fine to do TS. That's what most people do. So the advantage to transliterating this as an S with a dot, and it's hard to, it takes time to do that when typing, but you can at least do it when you're taking notes. It doesn't take any effort. It's actually less effort to put a S with a dot than to put a TS. The advantage to it is that it makes your transliterations shorter. It doesn't take up as much space. And you know that it's a Saudi. Whereas when you do TS, there are cases where the T might not be a Saudi. The T in the TS could be a Tav, and then the S after it might be a Sin or a Samich, right? So that's cumbersome and it can make for confusion. But if you see an S with a dot, you know for sure exactly what letter that is. The only reason people don't do it more commonly is because the majority of Jews in the US are Ashkenazim and they just don't know any better, frankly. All right, so qasir is harvest.
Asir, harvest. Takin,
Right? Tikkun. You could also do just a U here.
tikun. Tik,
I
oh, that's
put,
right. Like
yeah,
in tikun.
there's more than one way to transliterate. Q
Tikkun.
we're using to represent quf. That way you can know it's a quf and not a kaf. Right? So it helps with your knowing how to spell Hebrew more quickly. Tikkun, tikkun.
Tikkun. Tikkun means repair.
Right? And sometimes in Hebrew it means to make, especially in Mishnaic, the Mishnaic period of the Hebrew language. It can mean to actually construct something, but generally it means to repair, to fix.
Tikkun, repair.
Okay? It's a
Midot,
pretty common word. I would highlight it or circle it.
midot means traits. Chesed, kindness.
Right? And the H with a dot lets you know it's a het instead of the letter H, hey.
Yeah.
Instead of hey.
Chesed. Gevurah, strength. Tiferet,
Right? Tiferet, tiferet.
Tiferet, Tiferet, beauty. Nesach,
All right.
endurance.
Right? And again, the H with a dot lets you know this is a het as opposed to a ha.
Why is the C there?
I would prefer to not put the C there, but unfortunately, a lot of people who, well, the reality is most people don't know how to pronounce the letter het. So if the het is the first letter in the word, such as with kindness, right? Hesed. If it's the first letter in the word, they may pronounce it as an H, but that's fine because H, the English H sound is actually closer to the correct pronunciation of het than a sound is. So that's fine. The problem is that whereas H at the beginning of a word is always pronounced in English, but H at the end of words in normal English is usually silent. So if I just have an H here, they're likely to make it completely silent unless they know better.
Okay.
If I'm making transliterations for very advanced people who know better, yeah, there's no reason to put a C here. But I think for regular folks, at least when het is the final letter in the word, it does make sense to put a C or a K, and then to put a dot under the H so we know it's a het and not a chaf.
So it's Nesach.
Yeah, did that make sense?
Mhm.
All right.
Nesach means endurance.
Nachon.
Hod? No, it's Hod. I get used to the CH sound. Hod means splendor. Yesod, foundation.
In Arabic, there is the word hud. It means to take. All right. Heather, tur shalach, your turn.
Sephirah, counting.
Yes,
Sephirah. Is that right?
ma'am. Sefirah.
Okay. Sephirah, counting. Omer sheaf. Se'ora, barley. Kasir, harvest. Tikkun, repair. Midos, traits. Hesed, kindness. Gevurah, strength. Tifereth, beauty. Nesah, endurance.
Nesah.
Nesah, endurance. Hod, splendor. Yesod, foundation.
Mitsuyan. All right, you guys ready for this? Whoever wants to speak up. Maze Safira.
Counting.
Yes, Safira is counting. Omer. What is Omer?
Sheaf.
Mitsuyan. Excellent. A bundle of grain, a sheaf. Omer. Maze Sa'ura.
Barley.
All right. Let's go back to the top. When you guys give an answer before saying it, say the Hebrew and then the English. Safira. Maze Safira.
Sephirah, counting.
Excellent. Maze Omer.
Omer, sheaf.
Maze Sa'ura.
Se'ora, barley.
Maze Qasir. Qasir.
Kasir.
Barley is the Sa'ura. Barley. Harvest.
Harvest. Okay.
Qasir is harvest. I kind of have it in order like Safirata Omer, barley harvest, Tikkun Hamidot, which means the repairing of traits. Right? So they're kind of in little groups that can help you remember it.
Okay.
All right, let's do it again. Deb, Maze Sa'ura.
Se'ora is
It's a
it's not
certain
barley,
type.
is it?
Yes, it's barley. Let's say it again. Sa'ura.
Se'ora, barley.
All right. Maze Qasir.
Me?
Yes, ma'am.
Kasir is the harvest.
Yeah, barley harvest. See, they go in pairs. Counting of the Omer, barley harvest, repairing of traits, right? Repairing character traits, right? Tikkun,
Tikkun, repairing.
midot,
Midot, traits.
Zion, hesed, hesed.
Hesed. Kindness or loving?
Yeah. Now, kindness is not a bad translation. The problem with this word is that it's such a good word. This word is short in Hebrew, but it takes several words to really give the full effect of it in English. It's devoted loving kindness. It's a type of devotion that manifests with acts of kindness. But it's not just kindness, it's like a devoted, a steadfast kindness. Right? Gevurah.
Gevurah. The world? No.
Right?
That's
Gevurah means acts of might, an act of might or strength. It can mean strength. It can also refer to an act of strength. Go ahead. What'd you say?
Is it correcting? No. Correcting the world?
Correcting is tikkun. Tikkun is a
Okay.
correction or a repair. That's tikkun.
Repair. Gevurah
Gevurah
is
is strength or an act of strength.
strength or act of strength.
Yeah, and I would write this down. Sometimes it's a term in reference to God as well, like the mighty one
Okay.
or strong one. This is also a shorter form of this is how you say man in Hebrew. Gever is man, one of the words for man, gever. And ma'am, like a polite way to refer to a woman, is giveret, related to this, giveret. All right, milah haba'a, next word. Tiferet, tiferet.
Tiferet, beauty.
Beautiful. And it's not just beauty, it's splendor. It's It's glorious beauty. I think Hod was also translated as splendor. Yeah. Nesah. Nesah. Multiple choice. Nesah means Netzach means forever, endurance, or success.
Endurance?
All right. Yes, it means endurance. And it can also mean forever, depending on the context. And it can, if it's conjugated differently or spelled with different vowels, it can also mean success. Like haslaha, haslaha. No, that's a different root. I'm sorry. Like nitzahon. Nitzahon is victory or success. Nitzahon. Hon, not hon. Nitzahon. I'm influenced by modern Hebrew. Probably less influenced than most people. I can distinguish if I think about it, but sometimes I pronounce the which should be an is an because that's often done in modern Hebrew. So people often say nitzahon, but it should be nitzahon, nitzahon. All right, milah ba'a, hod.
Good means, I don't remember.
Right, hod is translated here as splendor, and it does mean splendor. It's like it's another word for splendor. It's like glorious splendor or majestic beauty, those sorts of ideas. Right? And finally, we have yesod. Maze yesod. Yesod. Hashem, the Almighty, blessed be He, is the yesod of the world. Yesod. He is like the hidden foundation of the world, but yet He's revealed. Right? Yesod is a foundation. Yesod, foundation.
So foundation.
Yesod. All right. So a few comments. You can write these down as notes if you would like. Sefirah means counting. This is also the term that's used in Kabbalah to refer to the 10 Sefirot, which are often translated as emanations. But the fact that it means counting is one of the indications that the earlier understanding of the Sefirot was not in a Gnostic sense of emanations from God, right? The Sefirot are not Gnostic type emanations of some sort of existence or being or entity that kind of morphs out of God, but is not directly created, but is kind of like an eternal emanation. That's not the authentic meaning of Sephirah in the context of Jewish mysticism. Not in authentic Jewish mysticism. It is often understood that way in what has become pop mysticism, which people should be very careful with. So if anybody has heard of the 10 Sefirot, the 10 emanations, in quotes, understand that understanding those 10 Sefirot as actual emanations is not representative of authentic classical Torah Judaism. In the earliest texts where the Sefirot are mentioned in some sort of a mystical sense, they do not understand it. They're not intending it as emanations. The word literally just means counting. And it's a counting of the ways in which God relates to us, interacts with us through his different created works. Okay, so it's not a reference to some sort of Godhead, heaven forbid. It's not a reference to multiple existences within the God of Israel, heaven forbid. Right? It's just a reference to the counting of his ways. He relates to us with mercy. He expresses acts of judgment towards us. He reveals his mighty deeds. Okay, that's Gevurah. Right? These are not tangible, independent existences, nor are they actual, literal existences that emanate from God in any sort of like pantheistic or polytheistic or uh, Godhead type theology. Rather, it's just a reference to counting his ways. That's the authentic sense of Sefirah. It's relevant to the counting of the Omer because in many popular devotionals, for lack of a better word, they kind of have things akin to like a daily devotional that are popular in the Jewish world that are followed during the 49 days of counting the Omer in traditional Judaism. And because the Gnostic type of uh, quote unquote Kabbalah has pervaded the Jewish world, unfortunately. So a lot of these devotionals are filled with references to the so-called emanations, the Sefirot. And you will see references to Hesed, Gvurah, etc. These are perfectly fine to think about as long as we know that this is not an ancient tradition of the Jewish people to ascribe a certain Sefirah in the sense of a quote unquote emanation to each day of the counting of the Omer. That is not classical Judaism, but it's a perfectly fine custom. It's even a nice custom if we understand it as aligning our ways, our actions, our deeds, and our modes of thought, aligning them with God's ways, i.e., walking in his ways as we're commanded to do in the Torah. But if we understand those devotionals when they talk about Hesed, Gvurah, Netzach, etc., if we're understanding that in the sense of joining with a certain entity that is some kind of an emanation from God, that's idolatry. We have to stay away from that, especially if you're crying out to those entities as if it's an entity instead of crying out to the Creator, blessed be He, whose unity is not composed of different distinct parts. Okay? So we do refer to God as the merciful one, the mighty one, etc. But these are not references to distinct entities within him, but rather we're referring to him as the source of the mighty acts we see in this world. And that's perfectly fine. It's a dangerous mentality that's pervasive now, unfortunately, that we have to be careful of. So Sefirah means counting, and because of medieval Gnostic tendencies, they've understood the counting of God's ways as emanations. So now it's kind of a precarious path that we follow during this time, sadly. So I'm just trying to help you guys have a safeguard against that and know how to protect yourself from those um, non-Jewish philosophies that have invaded the Jewish faith. It's a form of ideological colonization, sadly, and we have to free ourselves from that. All right. Milah ba'a Omer, that's sheaf, the barley sheaf. Sa'ura is barley, qasir. All right, and we get down to um, harvest. That's related to bringing the barley sheaf, which is part of the harvest, is the kind of a first fruit of the harvest that we do on the day after the first day of Passover. And then tikkun midot is the popular idea of repairing our character traits with each day of the Omer. Midot literally means a measure of something, a measure, but it also gets used to refer to traits. So it's a standard or a measure as well, from the verb limdod, to measure. Esed is devoted loving kindness. Okay, and these are here listed because they are popular names of the Kabbalistic sefirot, the Kabbalistic quote unquote emanations. Right? And who can tell us how it is possible to understand these in a kosher way as opposed to a non-kosher way? Right? They're in popular Jewish mysticism, you have what's called the 10 sefirot, the 10 emanations of the Ein Sof. I'm assuming several of you guys have heard of that. How can we understand that in a kosher way, in a way that is in harmony with God's Torah, as opposed to the problematic ways? Anybody wants to share their thoughts or summarize what we've learned here?
Aren't they God's traits?
Excellent, excellent. Now, if we understand God's traits as being independent existences within him, so that he's composed literally of parts, that's problematic. It's not monotheism, because there are people who will actually pray to an individual sephirah. This exists in the Jewish world, unfortunately. That's polytheism. That's reverting back to the mistake of, for example, in Hinduism, where they recognize that there's like a cosmic power that's manifest with different forces, but then they worship each force as a separate power. They
Hmm.
turn the different traits of God into separate gods. In every lie, there's truth. There's no power to a lie. There's no effect to it unless there's an element of truth to it. The element of truth is that God does manifest in many different ways, but all these different manifestations are not reflective of a multiplicity of the Creator in the Creator himself. Rather, they're a multiplicity in his revealing himself in different ways, right? So that's the truth in the lie of idolatry. And of course, the individual idolaters, they're not intentionally lying. They're not lying because they don't know, they're confused. But the idea as a concept, it's a lie. It's falsehood. So the 10 sefirot, the 10 traits of God, it's not that his traits are limited just to that, but more importantly, these traits do not represent a plurality of divinities. That's idolatry. That's polytheism. Instead, they reflect the fact that the one God reveals himself in many wondrous ways. Okay, that's the idea. Mr. Victor, are you still with us? I think he's just kind of got his account on, but he's actually gone to a ball game, eating a hot dog while we're well, this could be just picking. I'm just picking. He's not feeling well. We need to remember him in our prayers. Miss Heather, you with us?
Yes, I am.
Can you express in your own words the treacherous and precarious path of the Sefirot during this time, what we need to watch out for, and how we can understand it in a kosher way?
We need to be careful not to separate God's traits from him, as has been done by many peoples and many cultures throughout history,
Yes.
and still now.
So, and what do you mean not separate them
mm,
from him? What do you mean and what do you not mean?
Not to understand his traits to be separate entities, but to all
Excellent.
be a way of describing aspects of his being that are all a part of him.
Yeah, so they're just ways that we refer to God through uh, our recognition of his different acts.
Right.
So, on the one hand, God does reveal himself in different ways with different types of mighty deeds. But we have to recognize that, number one, these are created actions. They're not eternal, independent existences. They're created actions that are reflective of the one eternal nature of God, right? There's only one nature of God. There's only one absolute independent being. And there are not multiple beings that together make God. It's just
He
one
doesn't
being.
he doesn't have multiple personalities. He's one
Correct. Correct.
entity.
Absolutely.
Mhm.
And so when we say God is merciful, there is not God and then his mercy, two separate things that are eternal. But rather, God and his mercy, they're one and the same. It's the same thing. And it's revealed through multiple actions. All right. And then we have God and his justice, right? But it's not that God exists eternally and then there's a separate thing called justice that exists eternally. And they're both God, but they're distinct. So God and his just acts are distinct, but God and his justice as who he is, that's one and the same, absolutely the same thing. They're equivalent, right? It's not something that's appendaged onto him. This is very important to understand. And we
Question.
refer to, yes, ma'am.
Would the word roles work here? Because I'm a mother and a woman and I'm all these things, but I'm
Yeah,
one person.
absolutely. Yeah, exactly. And when we say roles, we're referring to um here we're referring to how you relate to different people or to different things. And so that's relating to how you are revealed through different actions. It's a very good analogy. Very good
Okay.
analogy. But the multiplicity of terms to describe the different ways you interact with people, that doesn't mean you're different people, right? That's crazy. It also doesn't mean that there's like a separate brain somewhere in your body for being mother and a separate brain that is the teacher and a separate brain that is the wife. It's all the same brain, you know? And of course, these analogies are not perfect. God doesn't have two hemispheres of a brain, but we get the idea. You have two hemispheres of your brain, but you have potentially 100 different roles. That doesn't mean you're 100 different hemispheres of your brain. It's the same person behind it all. But with God, it's not even two hemispheres. God is one in a way that is not countable. And it's not countable in that it's such a high number. It's that the concept of counting does not even apply to God. He transcends. His greatness is infinitely and unimaginably beyond the concept of number. When we say he's one, we do not mean that he is one like one among multiple different things. So we don't mean he's one God among many. We are not saying that he is one in the sense of one that can be counted. We cannot count him. In order to be subject to counting, it has to be finite. When we say God is one, all we're trying to say is that he is not multiple. He is not multiple, and there is none other like him. That's what we mean when we say he's one. He's one, unlike any other one. And he's most,
Incomparable.
yes, incomparable. That's right. And we use multiple words to refer to him because of the limitations of human speech, because we're bound in time. But the reality is, and this is a fundamental of Torah Judaism, the ancient and authentic faith of the prophets of Israel. It's a fundamental to understand that um, although we use all these different terms, the reality is that they're all one and the same, truly, absolutely equivalent, not just equal in nature, but equal identity. They're all the same absolute one, right? So that when we say God and his mercy and his wisdom, we are not talking about God and then some other concept or entity that's appendaged onto him or part him. Rather, God and his wisdom is absolutely one and the same. It's not God and then God's wisdom, right? He and his wisdom is absolutely the same. And then the expression of his wisdom, that's something different. His wisdom created, uh, uh, not created, but his wisdom reflected in us. That's something distinct, okay? But it's coming from him, coming from his wisdom, which is him, same thing. Same thing with his knowledge. God and his knowledge, it's his knowledge is not something added onto him. This is one of the ways in which his knowledge is fundamentally different. It's inherently, essentially different from human knowledge. Okay? Human knowledge is not identical to our essence. It gets added onto us. As we learn things, it gets added on and assimilated in, right? But it's still in some ways distinct. With God, he and his knowledge are synonymous. It's the same thing. But we can't talk about these things without using different words. We are forced by the limits of human speech to use multiple words. But he and his knowledge is the same thing. His knowledge is not something that uh, here's God and then here's his knowledge, and over time it gets added and attached to him. No, no, no. God and his knowledge is one and the same. From eternity, which we don't even mean it in the sense of time, we mean before time. He and his knowledge were identical, and it was perfect and complete. So he knows all things without it being added onto him. He knows all things independent of needing to experience those things. It's identical. So God and his knowledge and his wisdom and his mercy, all of these are one and the same. One and the same blessed God who is deserving of the highest praise. Baruch Hu u'Baruch Shemo. Blessed be he and blessed be his name. Okay, so we are made in his image, so we see these different revelations of his glorious nature manifested in us, but we should not mistake that manifestation for the sublime one who is revealed through them. Okay, so the different manifestations are not he himself in multiplicity, but they're all pointing back to the one source. Okay, does anybody have any questions about anything we've touched on? It could be anything today that we've touched on. Any topic? We have Sefirat Omer, the counting of the Omer. We learned how the word Sefirah, which means counting, is also the same word that gets used in post-Talmudic medieval mysticism or emanations. Okay, so we learned that this is the same word as counting in biblical Hebrew, Sefirah. And we learned that in the earliest writings referring to Sefirot in any sort of mystical sense, they did not mean it in the sense of an emanation, but that was a later concept that was added onto it. Really, it was an appropriation of classical Jewish thought, an appropriation by Gnostic sects that then influenced and infiltrated the Jewish world, unfortunately. And that happened between the 12th and 13th centuries. Some of the earliest references to Sefirah in this mystical sense explicitly state that they are nothing independent in and of themselves, that it's nothing tangible. And we learned that tikkun means to repair or to fix something, to correct something. But in early Mishnaic Hebrew, the Hebrew of the Mishnah, it can also mean to make something. That's important to know for other contexts. Tikkun midot. We learned that midot is traits, character traits. It literally means a standard. And so tikkun midot means repairing character traits. Tikkun midot. And this is a common Jewish custom to focus on repairing our character throughout the 49 days of counting the Omer in preparation for receiving God's Torah in Mount Sinai. Because derech eretz kadma Torah, proper etiquette, basic decency, just basic decency precedes Torah. We cannot accept the Torah if we have not yet developed basic decency on a, baseline level of human behavior, right? So we have to be decent people before we accept Torah. The Torah perfects us. It's God's wisdom to perfect us and to imbue more meaning in our lives. But we first have to be at that. There's a basic standard that a person needs to already be at before they are to be held accountable to the covenant of Torah. If they haven't yet reached that baseline level of human decency, they shouldn't be trying to take upon themselves Torah before they've learned be kind to my neighbor, be patient to my friends. Doesn't mean they're perfect in everything, but they should know that this is the goal and it should be their general behavior, right? So that is why Hashem, the creator, blessed be he, does not hold the entire world up to the standard of Torah. It's not that he doesn't want them to keep Torah, but in his mercy, he's not holding undeveloped people, undeveloped, unrefined personalities up to a standard that they're really not capable of walking in yet. The same way we don't hold a child up to a certain level of the law, certain standards of the law until they're ready, right? So it's not that God doesn't want the whole world to have his Torah, but rather in his love and his mercy, he's not imposing it upon a people who's not ready yet. But when they're ready, Baruchim Habaim, you are most welcome. And it's a blessing to you and to us. Okay. And what else did we learn? We learned about Hesed, God's devoted loving kindness. Does anybody have any questions before we move on? Any questions about Jewish mysticism, the Sefirot, the Tree of Life, Kabbalah?
Okay, I have a question.
Yes,
The
ma'am.
Safaria.org
Okay.
has this Omer counter
Yeah.
and does have some prayers in there that include some of these words that I'm not sure of because, well, having given up Christianity to serve one God,
Absolutely.
and knowing that Israel did commit that crime,
Yeah.
I'm not sure what in Judaism is that I can buy into and what I
Yeah, you need to
cannot.
be careful. It's true.
So as I learn, I'm not sure what to think about Kabbalah. I heard one teacher make it sound very normal
It's
and
very
not so
mainstream.
mystic. It didn't sound so mystical as when he
Yeah.
presented.
Okay. Okay.
So that teacher, I listened to all three of his videos, but most
You can
people I
say his
don't.
name. Feel free to say.
Ephraim Pavlov, he's
Okay.
Sephardic.
Okay.
Uh, he has 3 videos on it, and he explained it, what it means and how it's used, and so that technical explanation of the idea was helpful. So I still don't know very much about it, but I found he's a science teacher at a middle school, I think.
I'm
So
sure that helps.
he's very scientific, and he explained it in a scientific way. So I mean, I don't know what to buy into still, but I liked his teaching. It made it clearer to me what the essence of Kabbalah is supposed to be.
Yes.
But I still don't know how much of that comes from traditional Judaism. But like I said, in the Old Testament, we know traditional Judaism was way off base. So I
Right. Well,
don't know.
we do need to distinguish between uh, certain historical Jewish practices as opposed to the historical, authentic practice of the righteous of Israel. There is an unbroken chain of the righteous tradition of the people of Israel. There is an unbroken chain. But as is obvious to anybody who studies the Bible, the mere fact that all of Israel, or lack of a better word, all of Israel, it was never literally all, but the mere fact that the majority of the people of Israel are doing something does not mean that it's kosher. It does not mean even that it's really something Jewish. There have been times, and it's still the case in certain parts of the world, in the United States, certainly, that there's a conflation in the Jewish world between assimilation with local non-Jewish culture and Judaism. There are a lot of Jews who they confuse between non-Jewish values and Jewish values. Even certain non-Jewish political parties, they conflate those parties with Judaism. It's crazy. It happens. And it happens both on the political right and the political left. But I would say in the US, it's much more on the political left, a conflating of whatever is the popular agenda on the political left, this suddenly magically becomes Jewish values. It doesn't, this is not, this is not classical Torah Judaism. This is not classical Jewish values. This is assimilation. It's the exact opposite. And it makes no difference how many Jews buy into it or not. Uh, Classical Torah are those principles that we see in a continual line of Jewish tradition going all the way back to the oldest sources. That's classical Judaism. It is the teachings of Torah of the prophets of Israel, those prophets who pointed the people of Israel back to God's Torah, back to keeping his commandments without partnering the keeping of his commandments with other gods. And other gods doesn't just have to be a statue. Other gods can be any force other than the God of the Torah of Moses. Okay, any god other than the God of Abraham, even if it's not an idol, it's any principle, right? Any ideology that is in addition to it's adding on to the Torah. That's a false god. right? Even if they know it's not a literal conscious being, but it's some sort of a principle or ideology that's influencing their mind, that they're elevating as equal to or higher than God's commandments, that's another God, right? It can be, in the words of the sages of Israel, there are foreign gods within us, not just in our culture. They can be within us. These are concepts, right? Even a concept, if we're elevating it higher than God's commandments, we've established a God, a foreign God that we're elevating above the God of Israel, figuratively speaking, right? We're not talking about spatially, right? Um, and it says in the writings of the prophets of Israel, in the book of Ezekiel, it says that when the Almighty will have mercy on us and bring us back to our land, in Ezekiel chapter 36, he will have mercy on us even before we completely get rid of all these gods. And it says there in chapter 36 that when he brings us back to our land, then he will sprinkle clean water on us and give us a new spirit and purify us from our false gods that we served in those nations when he brought us back to our land, i.e., there will still be some false gods within us, even once he's brought us back to our land. And if we look around, these are clearly not tangible gods of stone, rock, and wood. These are ideological gods, gods of values that are not in congruence with the word of the God of Israel. These are the false gods within us, foreign concepts that we appropriated, that we picked up from the impurities of the idolaters among whom we were scattered. And that's what we have to work on currently. So as we are purifying ourselves to receive the Torah anew on Shavuot, during Sefirat Omer, the counting of the Omer, when we are looking at these little booklets talking about different Sefirot, different emanations, we need to be purifying ourselves of the service of emanations. Heaven forbid, even praying to emanations, which some people do. Some people do this in the Jewish world. Making distinctions between the true God and these emanations, and then they pray to the emanation. They pray to God through the emanation. It sounds eerily familiar. You know, just because you call another God by a different name doesn't mean that it's fundamentally different from other false gods, right? I can call a broom a cha-cha-cha and it's still a broom, you know? If I if my sister says, I don't want you, if my sister says, I don't like grape juice, and then I bring her a cup of grape juice and I stop calling it juices, right? And I say, no, this isn't juices. This isn't grape juices. This is orange juice. It's still grape juices, right? It doesn't matter. You just change the name. What is it? Is it something other than the God of Israel or not, right? Is it adding to his commandments or not? And the entire practice of talking about Sefirot during Sefirat Omer is not a Torah commandment. It's a beautiful custom that can be a framework for fulfilling a commandment of aligning ourselves with God's ways. It can be that. But if it's a practice of devotion or crying out to or worshiping in any way, anything other than the indivisible, incomparable God of Israel, if it's in any way a devotion or crying out to anything other than He, blessed be He, it's not a commandment. It's a violation of a commandment. Now, how to know whether something is authentic or not? Then the easiest way is to ask, is it consistent? Is it consistent with the words of the prophets in the Hebrew Bible? And if you're even unsure about them, are their words consistent with the Torah? If it's not lining up, then something's askew. Okay? And if you have any doubts, err on the side of caution. Err on the side of caution. The other way, which is kind of a shortcut for all this, is when was this teaching first given? Where can you first find it? Okay. If you can't find it before the 20th century, if you can't find it before the 18th century, if you can't find it before the 12th century, okay, if you can't find it before the Middle Ages, it doesn't automatically mean that it's false or evil. you cannot find it before the Middle Ages, there's a good chance that number one, it's not obligatory. You don't have to do it. And there's a greater chance you should look at it with greater caution. Okay, especially if it's from the 13th century on. 13th century is when the Zohar was first publicized and purported to be a text of classical Torah Judaism, which it is not. It is not. Right? It is a Jewish text, meaning Jews wrote it, and it's reflective of a lot of Jewish traditions, but it is not classical Jewish literature. It is not Talmudic literature, and it's pseudepigrapha, which should be a big red flag. Who can tell us what pseudepigrapha refers to?
Outside the biblical sources?
Yes, but that's not the simple meaning of it. You can have pseudepigrapha even if it's unrelated to Judaism or the Bible completely. Pseudepigrapha is any kind of book, any text that claims to be written by someone who didn't write it. It's kind of like the opposite of a forgery, where you take someone's work and you claim it for your own, right? It's kind of like the inverse of that. It's where you're not claiming someone else's work as your own, but rather you're putting something in someone else's mouth. You wrote a book and now you're attributing it to someone great. Usually they attribute it to someone great, usually, who came before them. And it's a way to make their text more highly esteemed, even though they don't have such a big name themselves. It's a cheap way to have much more powerful influence over people, even when you don't have so much influence. When people used to be more gullible, and people are still gullible, but trust me, people used to be way more gullible than they are now. And they didn't have ways to research like we do now. So if you had some ideas that you thought were great ideas and everybody needs to hear it, and you know that they're not going to listen if you put your name on it, so I'll just write the name of Rabbi Shimon Bar Yochai. It's the name of a certain famous Talmudic scholar of the Talmudic era. I'll put his name on it, and now people are going to take it a lot more seriously. Never mind the telltale signs in that text that it was not written by Rabbi Shimon ben Yochai. In the Talmudic literature, he's not called Bar Yochai. Even though the Talmudic literature is mostly in Aramaic, it's interesting that his name is given in that mostly Aramaic text as Ben, which is Hebrew, and not Bar, for son, which is Aramaic. But in the Zohar, he kind of overcompensated in trying to make it look authentic. He wrote it in Aramaic, a type of medieval Aramaic with some influence from Spanish, another telltale sign. And he kind of overcompensated and wrote the supposed author is Bar Yochai. But if you look in the Talmud, he's not Bar Yochai, he's Ben Yochai. He also refers to nekudot, which are the vowel points that had not been innovated yet during the time of Rabbi Ben Yochai. There were no vowel pointings. We had vowels, but only orally. There was no symbols to represent them. There's several things in the Zohar that are clear signs to anyone who's educated enough and intellectually honest enough to know something fishy's going on here. That does not mean everything in the Zohar is illegitimate or has no value. That's not what I'm saying. There's a lot of value in the Zohar, but for most people, it's a big distraction, or for the majority of people. And it's caused a lot of mess. And it is possible for something good to be abused. I'm not saying everything in it is bad. It could be that it was a great text and he didn't have to put someone else's name on it. But yeah, it would never have gotten popular if he hadn't put someone else's name on it. And that's a shame. But at the same time, putting someone else's name on it kind of says something about the character of the person who did it. And that should make us be extra cautious. So in short, to know whether something is authentic or not, does it contradict that came before it? Okay, is it in line with the Geonim? These are the earliest rabbis who came immediately after the Talmud. Is there anything in their words that support these ideas, or does idea XYZ contradict the words of the Geonim, the earliest post-Talmudic sages? If you can't find anything like this in the writings of the Geonim, the early post-Talmudic sages, and all the more so if you can't find it in the words of the sages of the Talmud, and you can't find it in the words of the Tanaim, the Mishnaic sages, and you're not finding it in the words of the prophets of Israel in the Hebrew Bible, and it's nowhere in the Torah, that's when you need to put your caution antennas on and your magnifying glasses and put it under a critical eye, right? Again, it doesn't mean it's all false, but it does mean don't just take it for granted that it's true just because everybody's following it. The main things are the plain things, and we should be building ground up, not from the roof down. And what many newcomers to Torah stumble in is they try to build their building of personal Torah observance from the roof down instead of from the foundation up. That is a huge mistake. Huge, huge mistake. The sages of Israel taught. This is in the Mishnah, it's in the Talmudic texts. They taught that a person should not enter into this mystical field of Torah speculation until they have first filled their belly with the meat of Torah. And that is knowing the will of God as he explicitly revealed it to everyone, right? That is our first obligation. If we've not yet mastered the Torah, we should not be devoting even 1/3 of our study to these mystical texts that were not revealed until the 13th century, right? That's a big mistake. And again, it doesn't mean it's all false, but it's setting yourself up for being deceived, whether intentionally or not. It's setting oneself up. We build from the ground up. And what is the yesod? What is the foundation? The yesod? Recognition that there is none like the God of Israel. There is no other God but him, right? That he's consistent in his ways. He does not change. He is consistent. The true God who is worthy of our dependence, the faithful God, is the consistent God, the one who is unchanging in his perfection. And two, the Torah. We learn the Torah. If it doesn't align with the Torah, if it's adding to or changing or removing from his commandments, something's wrong, right? That's a sign of falsehood. If it's telling us to ignore the instruction of the sages whom God commanded us to heed, if the sages of the Mishnah said XYZ, if they said that there is no Torah obligation to recite the Shema, Hear, O Israel, the Lord our God, the Lord is one. If they taught there is no obligation to recite the Shema in a particular position, and you can fulfill your obligation in any position, and then this later text comes along and says you have to do it in a certain way, otherwise you did not fulfill your obligation. That's a red flag. Big, big red flag. Unless there was a new Sanhedrin, a new Supreme Court of Israel that taught us this, no one has authority to say that. They could say, it's beautiful if you do it this way, or I think it's more meaningful if I do it in position X as opposed to in position Y. That's fine. If they express it as an opinion, or they say this is my tradition, but if they say you can't fulfill your obligation unless you do it in the manner of my newly revealed, secret, esoteric revelation, that's the sign of a false prophet in the guise of traditional Judaism. Okay? It says in the Torah, Deuteronomy 29, verse 29, Hanistoreth la Adonai. Okay, the hidden things belong unto the Lord, the hidden things, the secret things, these belong to Hashem. Maybe he will reveal it to some individuals, but this is not the covenant of Torah, right? There are some truths that are true, but they're not part of the covenant of Torah. That I know who's the current president in the United States might be true, but it's not part of the covenant of Torah. The secret things belong to Hashem. The revealed things are to us and to our children. The revealed things of the Torah are what belong to us and our children forever to do all the words of this Torah. to do all the matters of this Torah. Anything that was secret, that was hidden away, whether it's true or not, it's not part of the covenant of Torah. Right? So if somebody comes along and says, I discovered a secret manuscript that was hidden from the people of Israel for 2,000 years or for 1,000 years, it says Shimon Bar Yochai on it, even if he actually wrote it. But this was a secret. That is not a part of the covenant of Israel, even if there's some truths in it. So we should not be looking into these things, and certainly not uh, changing our religious observance based on that before we have filled our stomachs with the meat of the Torah obligations and all the Mishnah. If we're not a master in all these things, we don't know. Uh, we won't know how to filter the wheat from the chaff. Right? So first milk, then meat, and then we can have some dessert. All right, you guys. Any other questions? I know I was very long-winded. That's a very passionate topic to me because a lot of very substantial changes have happened, even in traditional Judaism, as a consequence of this. Right? There are people who even think unless you wear a black coat and a white shirt and a black kippah, unless you dress like that, that you're not a legitimate teacher of Israel. Even this kind of idea is stemming from that distortion of Jewish tradition. It's a rejection of reality. It's an introverted Gnosticism in the guise of Judaism. That is not authentic Judaism. That is not authentic Torah.
For me, the coming from being deceived in the past and not wanting to be deceived again, the most reliable source of information is Torah, and the prophets talk about the remnant, like Elijah thought he was the only one, and there were 7,000 others, which
Right.
tells me that it has been transmitted all
Absolutely.
the way through and continues to be. So somewhere there's a remnant of people who know truth, are
God is
teaching.
faithful.
He is faithful. He won't give up. He will keep his promises to Israel and to Abraham.
And he will
So
preserve his word, and he will preserve his.
even though it's contaminated possibly with other ideas, it is the closest I know to get to
Absolutely.
following God. And so I buy into Judaism for that reason, knowing it's imperfect, knowing that it will be corrected, God will be faithful. And that brings me great contentment and peace about choices that I make in my life. So anybody who is struggling with, well, there's all this stuff in Judaism that doesn't really apply, it's okay to cling to Israel because it is the closest you're going to get.
You
There
do the
is
best you can.
exactly. It's
And
okay to buy
all or
into,
nothing policy is also
yeah,
self-destructive. You
yeah,
know,
you can buy into this way of life knowing it's impure in places, because God will reveal the impurities in time.
if you have two cups of a drink and one is nasty sludge looking dirty water and another one is a kind of a tea. I don't know if you can see it, kind of a tea. You're not sure what it is. Maybe there's like one little suspicious thing floating in there. If you don't know any better, which are you going to choose? The one that a little light is coming through, or the one that's like really, you can smell it. It's totally putrid.
Exactly.
Neither may be perfect, and maybe both will make you sick. But if you have nothing else to go off of, go with the one that the most light is shining through, and maybe with time we can purify it. It's
I think the person who has left a previous belief system and is trying to find their way, as I am, it's it's you hesitate on so many things
you
because
should, you should.
you don't know if it's reliable. Like, I have lost so many things in my life over the years. I thought the one thing that I would never lose was my faith in God, and I perceived that as Christianity. And then one day, that I lost too. I willingly lost it, and it just turned my life upside down all over again from the inside out rather than from the outside in, because all the other issues that I have dealt with were outside in, but this one was internal and just blew my mind and my life apart. So I had to rebuild who I am and what I believe. Not just what I believe, but what's important to me. And as I do that, I look at Judaism and I see that as a guide, a trusted guide that I can follow, knowing there are imperfections, but they will be corrected. I think
Let's put
anybody
it this way.
in that position,
What other
yeah,
religion
no
is
other.
studying the Torah in the original language? You know,
Exactly.
even if you
That's
make
there's
mistakes,
nothing better.
there's going to be a difference between the mistakes or
Yeah,
misunderstandings of people learning it in the original language, as opposed to the mistakes of people who can't even read the first sentence in the. Yeah,
right,
they may both have mistakes, but they're going to be substantially different types of mistakes. You know?
right. So I hope that anybody who is struggling like I am and have will find confidence in choosing an experienced heart that, the heart of Judaism is to be pleasing to God and to do his will.
That's right.
So you can't get any better than that in anywhere in the world.
Without
So
saying that the only way I can serve God is if I kill people who disagree with me. That's not
right.
a
No,
very it's not a
that's the
very
opposite.
religion. That's not a religion of peace.
So I may not understand everything, but I am in pursuit of that remnant teaching of what God intended all along. So I appreciate your teaching here.
Thank you very much. Baruch Hashem. I'm so grateful for Heather and Victor and Ben. I'm not sure what he's up to, but they're super, super great um,
Yeah.
partners in helping to reach out to people. They're awesome. I was going to, oh, if you, in the words of the prophets of Israel, and they summarized some verses we find in the Torah, they didn't just pull this out of their pockets. Like, um, these ideas are rooted in the Torah itself. If you humble yourself and sincerely call out to the God of all existence, knowing that we don't know everything, with the sort of sentiment and state of heart that you've expressed here, you can rest assured that you're on the right path. Even if you don't know everything, you can know you're on the right path. Even if your opinions don't all align with my opinions, okay, or with Victor or Heather's opinions. If you are sincere and you are open to learning, you are already beloved by God, right? You are already saved, for lack of a better word. It says in the words of King David that Shomer Adonai eth avodo, he, the Creator, guards his servants, and none who take confidence in him will be condemned. None who take confidence in him will be condemned. It doesn't say, and none who know the absolute perfect theology and have never made a mistake on any point of understanding the commandments will not be condemned. Those who take refuge in him will not be condemned. Right? You can rest in that. However, one who takes refuge in him and is confident in him is going to pursue greater knowledge because they love him and they want to do his will. But it doesn't mean they already know everything. It doesn't mean they do everything perfectly, but their faith is of a type of faith. Their belief, their love of God is of a type of love and belief that makes them, that compels them to know more and to do as good as they can as they learn. But they're already there in the sense of that they are already in a covenantal relationship with God. And because of that, they're going to continue to learn more and more. And that's the path that we're all on. Anyone who will deny that of you, anyone who will treat you or anybody else like they are worthless, they're not worth uh, the dignity of learning how to do God's commandments. Anybody who will treat someone like that simply because they weren't born to the right family or because they look a certain way, because they have an accent. It doesn't matter what. Anybody who's going to treat someone in such a way, that person is not the type of teacher we should listen to or follow, right? Maybe they will say that with time, it's good that you will eventually get to a certain place XYZ, but they recognize that you are already in the right relationship with God, even where you are right now with any imperfections. You are already in the right relationship with God and beloved by Him. If they're like that, saying you're already in a healthy, proper relationship with God, even if eventually we will be in another position in the future, that's good. But if they say you're not worth my time, God doesn't care about you until you've already reached my standard of perfection, leave that person, right? The sages of Israel taught that a proper teacher of Torah will be comparable to an angel of mercy, a merciful angel who's reflective of God's character of patience and understanding, right? Not someone who's belligerent and looking for every opportunity to delegitimize you and invalidate you. You will be on a safer path if you just avoid those kinds of people, right? If you find somebody who can tolerate disagreements and can tolerate sincere questions, that's a good person. Whoever that is, that's a good person. And we have to remember Moses, the most humble of men. God spoke his most authoritative word through the most humble of men. However, we also can see how he was acting when God called him. He didn't say, yes, this is my opportunity to be the great son of the king of Egypt that I am. No, he was very aware of his imperfections. And God used the least perfect, somebody who would be easy to criticize to teach his word. He didn't use someone who's showing how perfect and smart he is. Yeah, he was smart, but God is made great in our humility, and that's what he wants most of all, a good-hearted person. That's the fulfillment of the fullness of Torah, and everything else are the details, as Hillel Hazaken said, as the sage Hillel said. Everything else are we need the details, but you first have to have the foundation. I think you already have that foundation, and anyone else like you. So thank you for joining his people. You know, whether it's formal or informal, you have joined yourself unto God's people. And let not the son of the foreigner who joins himself unto the Lord speak, saying, God separates me from his people. It's not so. But rather, he commanded us that the people of the covenant recognize that as you were a stranger an immigrant in a foreign land, and yet you were to be loved, so also when a son of a foreigner joins unto us, we are to love them as a native born. Kachem hager, right? Kachem kager. As you are, so is the newcomer who joins unto you. One Torah and one judgment for you and for the newcomer. They're the same before me, says the Lord. Says Adonai, Elohei Israel, the God of Israel. Right? That is a God of justice. That is a God of love. All right, Habibis. If you guys have any other little question, I'm okay with like another 10 or 15 minutes. Otherwise, I'll wrap it up. So, counting of the Omer, it's an opportunity for preparing for renewing our covenant relationship with Hashem, both as individuals and as a nation, where we stand at Mount Sinai again, so to speak, on Shavuot. But even before then, we are preparing the harvest, and the harvest often gets neglected, right? Sometimes people throw the baby out with the bathwater because they hear certain concepts associated with Christianity or from the lips of Christians. Words like harvest, words like being fishers of men. So then we kind of neglect certain concepts that are actually authentically Torah based, that are authentically part of Jewish tradition. We've neglected them because other people have appropriated these concepts from us. But that's no reason to leave them neglected, rotting away in closets, right? Rotting away in the fields. That fruit God planted there for you to reap and you to enjoy. And they are people who are also made in his image. So we should also repent as a nation this year. And every year we should repent from neglecting the ripe fruit that is asking to be picked, asking to be put in the basket and brought to his temple, to be laid there before him, not only for God to receive into his nation, but also for us to acknowledge and to embrace. So I call on any Ben Israel, Bat Yisrael, any Yehudi Yakar, Shetavinu, that you should understand, and Tafnimu, that you should internalize, that the person who joins into the God of Israel and fully embraces his Torah and accepts his people, because that is one and the same as accepting Torah. You cannot accept his Torah and reject his people. You cannot accept God while rejecting his people. You cannot accept the word of God while rejecting his people, without whom you wouldn't even know that that word exists. If we are to embrace Torah in the same way that for the foreigner to embrace Torah means embracing his people, it also means for those born in the people of Israel. If you want to embrace Torah or renew your commitment to Hashem at Mount Sinai, on Shavuot, in the same way that the foreigner needs to embrace you, you have to embrace the newcomer. In the same way that the foreigner who rejects God's people has rejected the Torah, no matter what he thinks he's doing, no matter how much he thinks he's embraced the Torah and is Torah observant. If he rejects the Torah, if he rejects God's people, the people of Israel, the historical people of Israel, he's rejecting Torah. In the same vein, the native born who is raised Torah observant, if he rejects the newcomer who comes humbly and has already embraced the fullness and has already embraced God's people, if the native born rejects him, he's also rejecting the Torah. There's an equal ground here before the God of Israel, who is not a respecter of persons. And he's not two-faced, but he's a God of judgments of fair standards. Right? So on that note, Hashem Yivarechem, God bless you guys, and keep you. We'll go ahead and wrap up our lesson for today. Thank you, everybody, for joining us. Now we're going to continue on to our closing prayer. If you have any questions or comments, you can leave them under the video where you've seen it, whether on YouTube or Facebook or any other platform where you may be viewing us, or on our Telegram or WhatsApp group. If you have any questions, whether now or later in the week when you're watching this, please leave your questions below and we'll try to answer them as soon as we can. Hashem Yishmerechem. God bless you guys and keep you. Okay, if you have not yet done so, you can do Havdalah. That's on page 45 in the Hebrew Ways of Torah Sidur. I will just go ahead and tell you how to do it quickly. If you have a cup of wine, you will pour the wine, hold it in your right hand, and give praise to God, saying, "Blessed are you, O eternal, our God, King of all existence, creator of the fruit of the vine." Don't drink it. Continue. If you have fragrance on hand, you hold the fragrance and you say, "Most worthy of praise are you, O eternal, the powerful authority over us, King of all existence, creator of various fragrances." And you smell it. In your heart, give praise to God and gratitude for the fragrance of his creations. If you have a flame on hand, then on Saturday night, you would see the flame and then give praise to God, saying, "Most blessed are you, O eternal, the powerful authority over us, King of all existence, creator of the luminescence of fire." If you're doing it now, you would omit this part. And then you continue, again, not drinking the wine that you're holding in your right hand. And you continue saying, giving praise to the God of all existence, who sanctifies the Sabbath from the work week. Most worthy of praise and source of all blessing are you, O eternal, the powerful authority over us, King of all existence, who separates between the holy and the mundane, between light and darkness, between Israel and the nations, and between the seventh day and the 6 days of creation. You could also read it, 6 days of work, creative work. Most worthy are you of praise, O eternal, who distinguishes between the holy and the mundane. Then you drink the wine, and everybody said, Amen. Okay, so now we're going to go to our closing prayer. Heather, are you still with us?
Yes, I am.
Oh my goodness, I cannot believe it. I was sure you fell asleep. Joseph France 2.0. Deb got me pumped. Okay. All right. Go ahead. You know what? You can go ahead and read to here if you're okay with that. Read to
Okay.
about this.
All right.
At
Moda,
each comma, I want you to translate. I'll help you if you need help.
I probably will.
That's totally fine.
Moda ani lefanecha, Adonai Elohai. I am grateful before you, Adonai, the powerful authority over me.
Beautiful.
Shesamta helki miyoshve beth hamidrash.
That
That
you placed. That you placed.
that you placed my portion
Among, literally it's from, but you can understand in the sense of among. Sitters of. It sounds nicer in English to say those who dwell,
those who dwell
right? Among the dwellers of.
in the house of study.
Excellent. Tamshichi, continue.
Walo samta helki miyoshve kornos.
Right? Tetargimi, translate.
And that you've not
Good.
placed my portion among those who sit on corners.
Excellent. I.e. street corners. It's not talking about somebody who randomly is, but people who just waste their day fooling around.
She'ani mashkim wachem mashkimim. That I work hard.
That I get up early.
I get up early, okay. That I get up early and they get up early.
So, yeah.
Ani mashkim lid ver lid ver
Vivre.
livre. There we go. Livre. Torah.
Divre.
Le divre. Torah. Wahem mashkimim le divarim. Lidvarim batalim.
Okay.
I get up early to matters of Torah, and they get up early to empty matters.
All right. Does anyone else want to volunteer? I'll help you out happily. Just the reading. I can do or Heather will do the translating.
Okay, I'll do the reading. Ani amal vehem.
Good job.
Amalim.
Excellent. All right. If you know any of these words, feel free.
Ani.
You might. Yes. And this word means work. It's singular.
I work.
M rhymes with the English word them.
Them. I work them.
And them are they.
And they work.
Yes,
work
so
and
I
they
work
work.
and they. Excellent.
Okay.
Keep going. You're doing great.
Ani amal ve macha
Bel,
bal
bel,
makeb
bel.
ve me kabal.
All right. Now, when the vav has a dot in it, it's an like an EW.
Oh, that's right.
Um.
Kabal.
Beautiful. Ani
Ani
amel qabel.
sha. No, it's sa.
That's right. Seen on the
Sakar.
left. Sakhar.
Sachar.
Let's translate this bit.
I don't know that one.
It's the same one as over here.
Yeah, Ani. Oh, I work.
There you go.
I work.
This is the root word for
And
Kabbalah. We were talking about Kabbalah. The word Kabbalah literally means receive, something that was
receive. I work and receive. Shakar.
sa.
Sakar.
Sakhar is reward.
Sachar. Oh, that's right. Reward. And they. That's the
Same word.
They work.
Yes.
And
Not.
what is that one?
And means not, or and is not.
Not. Okay. Ma
So see
kabalim.
this and then this. It's the same.
Me kabalim. Receive.
Yes, it's just the plural because hem, they is plural.
They receive.
So, and they
Reward.
don't receive.
They don't receive reward. Okay. Ani
You're on a roll.
rats.
That's right.
I mean, vehem. No, vehem.
Mitsuyan. Excellent.
Ratsim.
All right. Ras means run.
Ratsim. I run. And they run. Ani rats. Le. Lechiyam? No. Lechi.
You can pronounce it like an H.
Yay.
Yeah. Lahayye, lahayye.
Lechaye. Lechaye. Ha. Olam. Ha olam. Haba.
Beautiful. Ani ras lahayye ha'ulam habba.
I. Rats.
Maze rats. What is rats?
I forgot.
Right here.
Ani rats. Yeah, I forgot.
Is it jump, run, or sleep?
Receive. Receive.
Is it jump, run, or sleep? Sleep.
It's run.
Okay, there you go.
I run.
Let means to or for. Here it makes sense to say to or forward. So I run to.
Run to.
Have you ever heard anybody say lahayim? Lahayim.
Oh yeah, to life.
Yeah. Lahayye means life of. Hayim is just the noun life, and hayye is life of. So I run.
To life of Ha'olam, the eternal.
It can also mean all perceivable existence, like universe or world.
World. That's what I'm thinking. The world. Haba.
Just like you said earlier, ani haba'a, I am next.
The next world.
Yeah, the world to come, people often
World
call
to
it.
come.
Right, so I run unto life of the world to come.
Oh, okay. Vehem. Oh, we've had that before, but I forgot.
Hem is them or they.
Them. And they run to
Be'er
Ba'er?
is a pit.
It's what?
A pit. P-I-T.
Pits. Okay. Okay. Pits. Shah.
Shahath is destruction.
Destruction. Pits of destruction.
Yeah.
Oh,
So it kind of ends on a negative. So for that reason, I really encourage people to finish it with a personalized prayer that is at least ends on a positive note. There is a concept in rabbinic tradition to try to always end on positive notes, especially when we read the Torah. So if anyone would like to volunteer, wink, wink, to closing us with a little personal prayer of gratitude and for the week, that would be most appreciated.
I haven't been here, so I'll try.
B'chavod.
Do we close our eyes in Jewish prayer? I
It's
tend to not do
absolutely,
so.
it's not forbidden. Not only is
Okay.
it not forbidden, but if it improves your concentration,
Okay.
then that's praiseworthy,
Okay.
right? And there is precedent in the Shema. It's an ancient tradition to cover your eyes for concentration and to not be distracted when thinking about the unity of Hashem. We cover our eyes. And also, when the priests bless the people in a congregation, we're supposed to avert our eyes or look down so that we won't distract them and we won't be distracted. And also, when we say the Amidah, ideally we have our eyes looking down or even closed. So it's very much rooted in Jewish tradition. People often don't do these things for reasons that arose in exile, such as people started forgetting the prayers. We added so much extra stuff to the prayers that it became unfeasible for most people to remember the prayers, which means they have to have their eyes open reading from a book. But trust me, if you can distinguish between the basic requirements of Jewish prayer and all the extra stuff added, it is completely within reach to memorize the prayers and literally have them flow out of your heart with intention. And doing it with your eyes closed greatly enhances your intention. At least it does with me. I have a feeling it's that case with most people, but maybe not. So if it helps you, if you know personally, then by all means, close your eyes. And bowing your head, absolutely. Absolutely. In Jewish tradition, we would be bowing onto the floor. People have abandoned that partly because of the Zohar, partly because of the Zohar, Kabbalah. In Europe, it was because they were too poor and it was often wet and rainy and the floors were nasty. But in the Middle East, it was mostly because of the Zohar that people abandoned that. So bowing the head, that's absolutely a wonderful thing. You don't have to do it, but not everything is bad just because Christians do it. Certainly not. They
Good to
have
know.
merit as well. It's great that Christians have adopted some things. I wish they would adopt everything. But we should not abandon, in the words of the son of Maimonides, in the words of the son of Rambam, Rabbeinu Avraham, it is forbidden to abandon a Torah commandment or a practice of the prophets or a tradition of an authentic tradition of Israel simply because the nations adopted them. It is forbidden to abandon just because they adopted it. If they adopted everything, so we're going to throw everything away? No, no. So go right ahead and bow if that increases your intention. If not, it's fine. Whatever you feel like. B'chavod, go
Okay.
right ahead. B'chavod.
Hashem, we thank you for this chance to gather together and study your word, to learn from you and from each other. And we thank you for everyone's work that they put into making this happen. We're grateful for truth, for guidance of Israel, for the remnant you have preserved, and for the path that we are on, this even the ups and downs. We thank you that you teach us, show us, and help us every moment of every day, even when we don't realize it. We've got our minds on material matters and we go about our day, but you're with us. And we are grateful for that. We thank you for the time to study once again, and we look forward to studying again, and we thank you for being with us. Amen.
Amen. For the sake of his name.
For the
Barakabo.
sake of his name, amen.
That was beautiful.
Yeah,
You
I
have a
haven't,
wonderful, yes, ma'am.
thank you. I haven't prayed in a group of Jewish people before, so that's
Baruch
my first
haba.
time.
Well, welcome.
Thank you.
Well, welcome to the Jewish hoedown.
Yeah, it's easy with this group, so
Baruch Hashem. I'm happy to hear that.
Baruch Hashem.
God willing, one of these days, maybe we'll have some kind of little convention type thing and have a whole Shabbats together if that'll work out one of these days. I think it's totally within the realm of possibility. Be'ezrat Hashem, with God's help.
That's great. Thank you.
Thank you for such a sweet prayer and for helping us. And we look forward next week. And again, if you have any questions or anything, just
Okay.
message us. All right?
All right, thank you.
All right. Hashem yivarech otach. God bless you. Shalom.